We want to welcome everybody who has come to the Santa Clara City work meeting tonight, especially the Planning Commission. Want to welcome them here. We appreciate their being here and appreciate their input. Also appreciate those who have traveled in the audience to make presentation tonight, folks from TDS, so welcome. I'm Mayor Rick Rosenberg. We have present a full council tonight, Councilman Wendell Gubler, Councilman Denny Drake, Councilman Jarrett Waite, Councilwoman Lena Mathis, and Councilman Ben Shakespeare are all here. Appreciate them being here. Also appreciate the staff. We want to go ahead and jump right into our agenda, our working agenda tonight. Under item 2A, general business. We have number 1 on the agenda is a presentation from TDS Internet Services, and they have a contingent here. I'll let them introduce the contingent that has come. Jared, I don't know if there was any introduction or lead in or Brock, or just turn the time to them.
We'll turn on. We're just trying to get their PowerPoint
Still working?
presentation.
So Jared will entertain us until it comes up. Oh, looky there. You got saved by the bell. Okay, go ahead.
Start a timer here. Good afternoon, members of the council and Mr. Mayor. I'm Drew Peterson.
Well, Mr. Pearson, let me tell you, it's not in a PDF, or it's in a PDF, not the PowerPoint. So you may have to let me know when you want to go to the next slide.
Okay,
So
we're going to do it rapid fire. Okay. So again, I'm Drew Peterson. I'm Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs for TDS Telecom. We're headquartered in Madison, Wisconsin, and have a significant presence within St. George. Here tonight to give you a better sense of the kind of investments that we've made as an enterprise since acquiring Baja Broadband back in 2013, give you a sense of the kind of services that we offer in the community, the kind of community investment that we make, and our plans for the future. I've been given 20 minutes. I'll try to keep to that. We'd love to entertain questions. I've got several colleagues with me, so please keep those in mind as we move forward. Switch slides, Brock. So this is just a quick snapshot of TDS today. We have 1.2 million connections in 30 states. We've got 3,000 employees nationwide. We offer fastest internet speeds available in the country at 1 gig for residential customers and up to 10 gigs for businesses. We bring the fastest internet to growing rural and suburban markets across the country. And I think that's important. We don't go to NFL cities, we go to college towns. We go to communities that are growing, just like Southern Utah. We leverage existing technologies to offer the highest quality products and services for broadband, for sophisticated video, and reliable digital voice. Brock? This is just a quick assessment and assembly of the number of accolades that we've received. In the middle, you'll see local awards that we've won for best broadband provider in Southern Utah and in Iron County, partnerships that we've got local charities. And then around the ring, you'll see other accolades that we've received across the country. We're a great place for women to work, for the LGBTQ community, and we're a Fortune 1000 company. Next slide. The benefits of continuing to partner with TDS, I think, are pretty self-evident, but let me hit them. We invest in fiber in all new subdivisions, and all of those subdivisions get symmetrical speeds. Market coverage. We cover the entire franchise area of this municipality. So when we talk about you have 1 gig broadband availability in Santa Clara, that's everyone in the city limits. We offer tailored customer care. We employ over 100 people in Southern Utah. We have a state-of-the-art video platform, and we eliminate risk to you. We are a significant taxpayer. We pay significant franchise fees, and we have consistent and continued investments that will continue to generate new tax assessments. Next slide. Continue with the benefits of partnering with us. We maintain an existing network with fiber backbone. That's hugely important. You've heard a lot about fiber. We maintain that. Established service in the marketplace. Again, it's everywhere. Successful track record of citywide deployments and partnerships. We generate no city debt, no need for bonds. This is all private sector investment. We have great contracts with the county and the state and the Utah Education Network. They're in place today. We are a provider of choice. And I would say the acquisition of Baja back in 2013 required substantial capital investment to rehabilitate and improve services. We also acquired Interlinks, a local company from Tonaquint networks along that way. That was key to ensuring Southern Utah wasn't single-threaded, and now we're connected to Los Angeles and Denver. There was a period of time prior to TDS's acquisition of Baja where there were many situations where the community was isolated. You were not able to transmit and receive traffic. We've made investments to cure that. Next slide, Brock. There is a lot of information in here about network investment. We'll try and talk about this at a kitchen table level. Investing in infrastructure has been vital to our continued success. And since acquiring Baja in 2013, we have made all kinds of updates to our core internet backbone, routing capacity. We have invested over $100 million in just Southern Utah since 2013. 30 million in a sophisticated new video platform that we are launching this year and have launched, and 86 million in network capital, including success-based investments. Our network reliability is over 99.99%, including battery and generator backup. Let me emphasize the Southern Utah cluster and surrounding communities are a key strategic network area for TDS. We have prioritized and made this market a key for us. We will continue to do that going forward. Next slide. When I talk about network reliability, I think the key is to understand capacity. When we took over Baja, we had one route at a 2 gig speed. Since that time, we've purchased multiple links, 2 that are 100 gig. They take us to Denver, they take us to Los Angeles. That allows us to have complete network resiliency, redundancy, and we've seen significant high performance since we've made those investments. I think that's the key takeaway here. We have great capacity availability, and when we get to a 50% threshold, we'll make additional investments going forward. We have cured that challenge in the past. Let's go to the next slide. This is simply a picture of all the connectivity we maintain across the country. We often refer to ourselves as the biggest small company in the country, and I think that's a great way to think about TDS. We are not Comcast. We are not Verizon. We are a company that is committed to the communities that we serve. Brock? This gives you a little bit more information about the appliances that we deploy and all of the routers that we have updated, all of our fiber to the home. So every new subdivision, every new commercial address that generates in Santa Clara is getting full fiber to the home from TDS today. That will continue in the future. Currently, we're at about 12, I think closer 14% in Santa Clara. That grows every day as your community grows. We have every expectation that all new investments that we make going forward are fiber. But consumers generally, there is a lot of sizzle to the name fiber and having it in your community. But what fiber offers you today is 1 gig broadband services and the ability to provide video and voice over it. Every citizen in Santa Clara has that today from us. We're very proud of that investment. Since 2019, since we bought those updated links, since we invested, we've had almost no capacity issues. We are not perfect, but we have made substantial improvements to this market that we're very proud of. Next slide. Community partnerships. This is an assembly of all of the things that we do across Southern Utah. There are a number of things that you'll recognize in this local community. Let me just simply say that we live and work in the communities that we serve. In Southern Utah, we spend about $250,000 a year annually to be community citizens, to be community partners. It's in the fabric of our company that's been in existence for over 50 years. It's our founders' belief. It's our leadership's belief. It's something that we think demonstrates localism, and we think it's something that customers value when they do business with us. Next slide. Penetration rates and growth. So this is a bit of an eye chart, but the takeaway is in the middle. When we currently have 53% of residential customers taking our service and 35% of commercial customers. When we took over from Baja, that was 39%, and we've grown it materially in just a short period of time. Now that is, where we focus our attentions on how we can better service customers, grow those penetration rates, deliver the services that businesses, residential customers need. We know broadband has been pivotal throughout the pandemic. We believe that will change people's behavior in the future. And because of that, having a resilient broadband network along with video and voice, we think is a strategic benefit that Santa Clara maintains. Next slide. Here are some of the products and services we maintain. I'll keep it again at a high level. We offer download speeds that start at 300 meg. They go up to 1 gig. So 300, 600, 1 gig. That is, substantial investment, substantial speeds. We have symmetrical upload and download in every fiber to the home subdivision and business that we deploy. And we have mesh Wi-Fi networks to make homes more sophisticated, eliminate dead zones, and have the experience for the consumer be better. Our phone service was our lineage 50 years ago. We're pretty good at it. Next slide. We've rolled out our TDS TV Plus, which is a cloud-based TV offering. It has incredible sophistication. It has voice grade remote. It has immediate ability to rewind programs. It has virtually unlimited DVR space. You can buy our boxes at a discounted price, or you can bring your own technology, whether it be a Roku, an Amazon Fire Stick, to allow for you to stream your services. And we integrate things like Netflix, things like Hulu, things like Amazon Prime into the experience. So you can utilize your voice remote and say, I'd like to watch the movie Born on the 4th of July. And once you authenticate all of your services, it will figure out who you get that from, and it'll display it to your monitor. We've made significant investment in this, and going forward, we think it's going to be a game changer. Again, I will remind you, we are evangelists for video. Video pays franchise fees. Franchise fees go to Santa Clara. You utilize those for your PEG channels, for streaming of this, for other important services across your community. That will continue to grow as we evolve that product. There's a couple of additional things related to our TDS TV Plus product. I think that I've hit them pretty well. We have wireless set-top boxes. We have, all kinds of support via local field technicians. We offer 4 different selections that you can seek, so you can have a value-rich product, or you can have something that is really a Cadillac experience. Next slide, current promotions. So this is what constituents in Santa Clara care about. What are the speeds that I'm going to get? What is the price that I'm going to pay? We think these are extremely compelling, aggressive, competitive, and pocketbook-friendly prices. 1 gig starts at $60 when bundled. 300 meg is $29 when bundled, and $39 on its own. Again, very fast speeds at very fair prices. As I said, we have pocketbook-friendly TV packages, start at $25 a month. And again, voice, in some instances is a commodity. In our case, we think it's a great additive to a bundle that makes sense for families. Next page. This is our last slide, and I think this is a bit of an elephant in the room. And, as a company that operates in 35 plus states, we've seen a lot as it relates to government-run networks. We own several of them that we've acquired over the years. Dozens of municipalities across this country have entered into the broadband business over the years. A handful have been successful. That's not to be punitive. That's just, the data set. Local Utah politicians, in our view, have recognized this and commented on it. U.S. Congressman John Curtis from the Provo area has articulated his views. He sold his system in Provo when he was mayor. He believes that there are a multitude of important civic services that cities provide. Broadband, in his view, is not one of them. We have an extremely large network, as we demonstrated. We're a community investor. We're an extremely strong competitor in Utah. We hope that we've earned your support. Our track record of maintaining penetration rates in our markets is very well documented. And when pressed with significant competition, simply put, we win. We win on product, we win on speed, we win on pricing, and we win on service. Communities in Utah that have 1 gig broadband available today from private providers should, in our view, be cautious about exposing taxpayers to the high cost of issuing revenue bonds or indirectly guaranteeing the debt by other entities to build networks that already have capabilities here today that your citizens and constituents can enjoy. As I mentioned at the onset, TDS has acquired several municipal broadband systems in our communications portfolio. In each instance, the community ran out of capital, found the business to be overly complex, and didn't have a sustainable customer base. What we've seen in both instances is the community really built the enthusiasm for a robust broadband system. But with all of the competing priorities that cities, growth cities like yours have today, broadband becomes an extremely expensive proposition. It's one thing to build the network. That's about a third of the cost. Then you need to maintain the people, the technology, the technicians, the equipment. And then ultimately, you've got to be able to meet the growth that is happening significantly in this community. So think about, you build the house, you maintain the house, you fill the house with residents, and you have to be able to survive the rest of the subdivision activity that takes place. We are, again, very focused on being a strong community partner, and there's no interest in maligning other opportunities. But I think it's important that you have an appreciation for what we've done since we acquired Baja, how we try to be strong, community partners, investors, and what our plans are for the future, which is pretty clear and evident. Fiber everywhere going forward, 1 gig to all customers in the municipal limits today. And with that, I'll entertain any questions you all may have, and I appreciate your attention.
Introduce your team.
Yeah, absolutely. So locally, Brenda Cody, she's our market manager. Nathan Johnson. Hell, how are you? Tim, Tyler, and my colleague, Mark Barber, who's our Senior Vice President of Network Operations, can answer all the difficult questions. I will say that this was an attempt by our team to see if Midwesterners could survive high desert heat. It's a little touch and go. We're used to humidity. This is a dry heat. But I'll tell you, with the pandemic, we have restricted travel. We were very excited to come here. Our wives were very excited to get us out of our houses. And, we've met with multiple communities today, and we stand ready to answer any questions you might have.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mayor.
Stay there. I wanted to also recognize Mayor Hart from Ivan City, who's in the room, and the city manager, Dale Coulomb, who is in the room as well. And then part of the questions, guys, if you guys have any questions you want to ask tonight, feel free. Okay. Okay. Council questions. Jarrett, I know you're like chomping at the bit, so go.
Yes. So I think just from a council, just so you kind of where we're coming from, you probably have seen our internet survey we did. It's been about 1.5 years ago, right before COVID hit. And it was pretty clear from our citizens that we needed to make sure we were providing really good internet service to the community. They gave service in Santa Clara in this survey a negative 45% net promoter score, which I understand is not very good at all. And it was actually the worst out of all the communities that did this survey in Southern Utah. So that's why we're kind of where we're here, basically. We just want to make sure we're providing the best service available and possible to our citizens. And so that's why we talked to Utopia. That's why we want to talk to you. And in the same survey, when we asked, should we at least be looking into other options? 85% of the respondents said, yeah, you really should be looking at other options. So that's basically why we're here. Sure. I do have some kind of technical questions because I think there's a lot of anecdotal stories out there of like, internet service isn't good, but I don't really know how the city should respond to that when we get that question. And so I kind of want to just lead off with that. Like, there's kind of a couple pockets in the city where I hear pretty consistently that the service isn't great. But I never know, is that just their router is really old, or is that Is it the network? Like how do you respond when someone calls, or how should we respond to a question like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first I would say, we're glad that we're having this conversation with you as well. And we're glad that you invited us here to have this dialogue. I think it's pivotally important to appreciate the kind of investments that we've made to turn that corner, right? Reputations take an awfully long time to build, and they take almost no time to erode, right? So we've been working back, in some of the meetings we had with other communities today, they were talking about, well, we remember when you were Orange and when you were Baja and all of the other flavors of the month in between. And what I said to everybody is, well, we'll be the last provider that you'll remember, because TDS has been in business for 50 years. We're publicly traded, we're privately held. We control our own destiny. We do not, we have sold, less than 5 things over the course of our period of time. We acquire, we are operators, we build for the future. I think we've focused our attentions and our efforts on really trying to keep our heads down, improve the network, grow it for the future, ensure that it was reliable and resilient. And I think we've done that. And of course, when you ask the question, should we have a fiber network? I'm surprised the numbers aren't higher. I mean, everybody wants fiber. It has a tremendous amount of sizzle. The questions you need to ask as a community are, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to maintain this? How are we going to get the kind of penetration rates that don't require us to cover the stub on the back end? And, with all due respect, I mean, we have 53% penetration today, and it's growing because of the investments we're making. Very difficult for a third provider to take that away. And now, don't get me wrong, we're not perfect. And everybody has, loves to malign the cable company. We've tried to change that to be a community broadband partner. It takes time. It absolutely takes time. But I think the other thing I would tell you, and we frustrate with this as well, when people have an extremely good experience, they generally don't take the time to do a Google review or respond to a survey. Generally, if something goes wrong, goes terribly wrong, people communicate that, and they tell their friends and they tell their neighbors. And so it's our job to combat that, right? And we got to run to the house and say, what was your issue? As we have seen more pivoting to the needs of broadband, the amount of devices that run on Wi-Fi, the customer education is huge, right? We can test on the side of the house and say, definitively, you're getting 300 meg or you're getting 600 meg. But we have to take it a step further and then work with the customer and say, so what's your issue? Oh, you're on an iPad and it was purchased in 2014. The compute power doesn't allow for it to get the kind of speeds that it wants. Or if you really want to get, dedicated throughput at 1 gig, plug it into your Ethernet cable. You can absolutely do that. Some of these, devices aren't prepared to run 1 gig. And we have seen a big uptick in 1 gig, but it's 20% of our customers. And in the months prior to COVID, it was 5. So 1 gig is a real halo. Like, it's an advertised speed, extremely fast, commercial grade, best in the country. 300 meg is rock solid. And that's where the vast majority of our customers were prior to the pandemic. Since then, everybody has moved up the stack, right? I got my kids at home. I'm telecommuting. My wife is here. We're running all these devices. I'm tired of hearing my kids say my gaming isn't working. And they all moved up the speed stack. And generally speaking, I think they've had a great experience. So to answer your question, Jared, I mean, we're not perfect. We've made huge investments. We're strong community partners. We're committed to growing that reputation and that service over a period of time. And we're committed to working with you to do it. And, we're very interested in where's their new business sightings taking place? How can you leverage your community as a community that is smart? Customers don't care if it's fiber. They want to know how fast it is. And I think that's something that we've got to do a better job. As I've heard and talked to communities today, on our billboards that say 1 gig, we need to put on the bottom of it for everyone, because within the municipal limits, that's what's available. I hope that's responsive.
Thank you. Yeah. And in your opinion, how long will the infrastructure that's in the ground now hold up to the customer needs? Like,
Yep.
I think that's kind of what we're looking at, is trying to be a little bit future proof if possible. Just understanding that copper does have limitations, but then I also understand there's DOCSIS 4.0 coming up that may make with something like DOCSIS 4.0 make copper competitive in speed wise to fiber?
Well, let me start
are we
by
jumping the
saying-
gun basically by saying copper's no good? Will it hold up long term?
We own copper in our portfolio of companies. We have no copper in Southern Utah. We have coax, but majority of what we have is fiber to the neighborhood and then coax into the homes. And as growth continues, we keep getting closer to subdivision. So you're at the front and then you had a node that covered probably 200 houses with all of the speed demands. Now we split that node, get it to 100, and we're continuing. All of that investment has been to bring fiber closer to the home. And we recognize that. But there's also this element of what we've got by way of coax to the house is very, very durable, right? I mean, it's almost like you take all of the PVC piping out of your house just because there's a new, piping product. And, generally speaking, people aren't going to rip out their drywall and do that. So what we've done is moved fiber as close as we can while ensuring that we can continue to deliver those reliable speeds. But without question, I mean, we are making fiber investments, every new subdivision, every new business park, and that will continue. So to your point, I mean, we're moving as close as we possibly can. And at a certain point, we'll flip over and go fiber direct. We have done DOCSIS 1, 2, 3, 3.1, which is where we're at today, which allowed us to get 1 gig speeds. I would think we'll go fiber before we go to 4.0. Yep. So hopefully that makes some sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I think so can you cite some cities where you have overbuilt and actually gone to older neighborhoods and put fiber in? Or are those neighborhoods basically in Santa Clara always going to be on their coax and we just have to kind of live with whatever speed that can provide in the future?
Yeah. So just in a quick 30-second thumbnail. So TDS owns a bunch of wireline companies, which are like CenturyLink. We own cable companies like here. And then we also overbuild communities where, say, a CenturyLink and a Charter is located, and we're the third entrant. We're spending $400 million this year to go into new markets where we're the third provider, developing and delivering a full fiber network. Every single house, every street, every backyard, we're building it. And, it brings cities to their knees, but when they're done, they're smart cities, right? Now we're delivering broadband, we're delivering video, we're delivering voice, which is pivotal to our economics. Right now, we're doing Spokane, Washington, Spokane Valley, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, suburban Boise, Billings, Montana, a host of other communities in Wisconsin and North Carolina. So we absolutely are fiber evangelists, but in a market where we've made the investment to really make the network durable, we're going to get the most out of it until we need to make that pivot point, that inflection point. And we think that makes a lot of sense. Again, the consumer's like, look, reliable, fast, price effective, good service. Fiber's neat, but they also like our video. They also like reliable voice. And, we're making sure that we're not making investments for investment's sake, which allows us to keep our costs at a more reliable price point. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to directly answer the question, which I know you were doing, but so the real question that you're asking is, can I name neighborhoods where we've actually totally overbuilt ourselves with fiber? Mm-hmm. We did do that on the telephone company side because it was copper and it was insufficient. And so we actually probably have 50 markets that we overbuilt. I'll say traditional copper, like telephone company copper, the twisted pair stuff. On the cable side, we have not gone in and overbuilt ourselves in a network that was HFC, hybrid fiber coax. And we haven't because so far that product has been able to deliver every product, service, and speed the customers were looking for. So will we do it one day? Yes, we will. When will that happen? And the answer is when the node sizes get down, we talked about, 200 homes, 100 homes. A couple of years ago, it was 500 homes. A couple of years before that, it was 1,000 homes. So the fiber keeps going deeper and deeper. When we get to about 50 homes per node, at that point, you're better off to go fiber to the home. So to your question about DOCSIS 4.0, we won't go to DOCSIS 4.0 because by the time you go to DOCSIS 4.0, you're so close, you might as well just run a fiber job. So we have not overbuilt any of our HFC with fiber all the way to the home because there hasn't been a need to yet. The day that we have a need in the community and the customer that we can't fulfill with the technology that's being deployed, that's the day we'll run fiber all the way there in those those areas. I think that was. kind of
Yes,
part
that
of
is
the
what I was
question.
asking for sure.
Thanks.
Excellent. And then you've talked about how fiber's kind of a sizzle factor, and I think you're right. Like, it does sound really cool. It sounds like the future. It sounds like that's what I would want if I had the choice. But can you maybe touch on some of the struggles you see in your fiber network? Like, because I think at least from what I've speaking to citizens, what I've surmised is that everything is up to a number, and you hardly ever get that number. And so I think people are just frustrated that, it says I should get 300, but I'm getting 100, or it says I should get a gig and I get 500. And I've looked through your reviews, that's pretty common. And I know there's a lot of factors that go into it. That's why I asked, is it an old router? Is it old technology? Things like that. But at least it's been sold to us that fiber really does deliver what it promises. Is that true? Is that not true? Can you maybe enlighten us a little bit on that?
Well, we very much believe that fiber, delivers. We still have the exact same challenges in our fiber markets, of which we have many substantial fiber markets where we have, I'm paying for 300 and I'm getting 150, or I'm getting 100. Again, a lot of customer education has to go into that. We have the appliances and the ability to see precisely what it is that they're getting by way of speeds. And then we have to just work through and kind of triage. Here's where we think your issue is. And there's a number of ways that we have to do that. I mean, the biggest challenge, fiber has sizzle. It's also remarkably expensive. And the payback on that takes an awfully long period of time. That's why we're such big believers in it, because we're publicly traded, but family held. And our view is play for the long game. And ultimately, we make all of our decisions based on economics and capabilities of the network, as Mark discussed. And at that certain inflection point, you make the decision. So we all want to go in that direction in all of our markets across wireline, cable, and out of territory. It just takes some time. But this would be a much more difficult conversation if you're saying service is terrible, you don't deliver the speeds that people expect or that you market. And we just don't have to defend that. I mean, I do think that we really do make that kind of investment every day and are continuously improving and looking at and reviewing our circuits and making sure we don't have capacity challenges and forecasting them. That didn't take place in the past. When your company's owned by private equity, they're trying to squeeze all of the juice out of the lime, right? And in our case, we try to invest all of the capital that makes sense so that the customer experience improves. Again, takes time, but that's our view.
Okay, and then just so I understand correctly, like fiber would be in your future plans for our city, but it's really just based off needs. It's based off once there's only so many homes on a node, then it just makes sense, like you said before, to just jump to fiber to the home.
I would say fiber is in our current plan, and it has been for the last 5 years. So for your enormic, sort of meteoric growth, every new subdivision, when the trench is open, we're running fiber through it and have been doing that for years. So every new subdivision covered, every new business park, we're getting fiber there. And so we're doing that in a very incremental fashion. And we think we work well with your city planners to know what's coming next. They give us visibility that this, is the next plat that we're going to do. We get into that trench. So it's absolutely part of our current future today and will continue to be going forward. And it's just, when we hit that intersection, then it'll be a full fiber network. And, it's really difficult. We've had community conversations today. Well, precisely when is that going to be? It really depends on consumer usage patterns. But we can tell you they have exploded. The pandemic accelerated that. The amount of 500, houses used to be on a node, then it was 200, now it's 100. That acceleration is just happening, overnight. And so, it makes sense for us to get to that point. We want to be the market leader in the products and services that we deliver here. We believe we are today, but we're not going to rest at this is good enough. That's just not in our DNA as a company.
Okay, I think just one more, Council. Sorry. So we've been given like just a generic quote on what it costs to put fiber into our in our streets. And it seems like such an astronomical number to ask any ISP to ever do that. And so, I think it's like $7 million or somewhere around there is what Utopia thinks it costs to put fiber into the home in our community. And that's just a lot per person to have to cover. And so that's why it turns out to be over a 25-year bond to pay that off. And so I guess just my question is that too big of an ask for any ISP? And does it really take a municipality to just get it done if we don't want to wait for that node process to work its way through?
Yeah, a couple things to think about. Communities need to deliver on services for their constituents. There are many communities in this country that cannot say they are delivering as it relates to reliable broadband, sophisticated video, reliable voice communications in their markets. In those areas, in those limited communities, municipal broadband likely can make some sense with support from governments, but that's not Santa Clara. That's a very small rural hamlet that has no stoplights and lost their post office. And I think that is important for, city councils to appreciate, right? There's all these billions of dollars coming from Washington to put toward broadband. None of it's coming to communities that have broadband in them today. And frankly, as taxpayers, we should be happy about that. We're really trying to solve for the problem, right? Of those that didn't have broadband yesterday, we'll have it tomorrow because of the investments that were uneconomic, to your point, to make. The government will step in and likely partner with private providers to solve that problem. I think municipalities that have robust, reliable broadband in them today should be putting pressure on those private providers to make sure that they're good corporate citizens, that they're making investments. I mean, we feel pretty good about where we're at. We're not the only provider in town. And there's plenty of other choices. If people want to go wireless only or go satellite or what have you, we believe we're making the best investments for the community that customers, constituents really appreciate and value. And to your point, I would say their estimate's pretty accurate. We'd probably say it's 10 million. You got to think for the long term, and you got to think about that payback is worth it because communities will appreciate that you took that risk. Communities don't always appreciate when the community takes the risk. And I would just leave you with, and this was, certainly no prejudice. This business, extremely complicated. We're not perfect. When we do fiber in a community, we bring that community to their knees. When you seek permitting, we go down every street, every thoroughfare, every subdivision, every backyard. Then we put pedestals. We used to, we don't anymore, that go next to the existing pedestals in people's front yards. They don't really like that. Or in their, backyard is where the two pedestals are, but there's no more room in the right of way. So we've got to bring ours to the front. So we've changed our entire designs and now they're flush mount caps. People still don't like that, but they can mow over them and they can put a flower pot on it. It works. My point is just, this is not a business for the faint of heart, right? And we've been in this business for 50 years. We're in every line of this business. We're not the biggest, but we're very focused on what's in the best interest of, the consumer. And, what's unique about TDS, you're usually a wireline provider or a cable provider. And we just said, look, let's be the best broadband provider in any one of our chosen markets, regardless of technology. So wireline, cable, fiber, that's what we do. And that's how we manage our business every day. We care about, net promoter scores, customer service satisfaction. We invest in the customer experience. It's never enough. Tell you what, when the phone went out, you had this. Your broadband goes out, you get to see your children, right? They all come forward and like, what the heck is going on? Your TV goes out, same thing. So that need for reliability has never been stronger. And we really feel like we've made the investments and we have the data to suggest that we're delivering on that. Always going to be customer problems. We always try to run to that house and figure out how we can fix it. It's a journey. Say it like that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your questions.
Just so Jared doesn't dominate, you guys have any questions? I know better than to ask you to.
We were the senior citizens
Yeah.
Garrett was talking about.
You asked me, leaned over before and said, what is this?
I do have one question because, and I'll say that again. This is Jarrett's wheelhouse. So I'll when you're talking copper and PVC, I love that though. that's right up my
Builder?
alley. I'm a plumber by trade,
Okay.
so.
Never been a better time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Utopia plan, they came in and said, look, we put the fiber in and then all these other carriers have the option to jump on. It's there for them, all that from TDS side. Is that what it is from a secondary carrier on that? If fiber is brought in, a city does that, does TDS have the right to jump in there and provide their service just the same, or does that become complicated on that?
Well, it would be the city's determination if, a fiber provider was allowed to come into the market. They generally get the same non-discriminatory terms as us. We would not utilize an open access network because we have a very expensive network here that we're continually investing in today. We have seen open access networks take place across the country. We've never participated in one. We've looked to acquire them in the past. We're looking to acquire one now. I think it's probably a matter of time. We run sensitive, proprietary cybersecurity back office stuff that customers care deeply about. And to share that kind of an experience with an open access provider has never worked in our view as a private sector provider. So we'll continue to make investments right alongside the community if a new entrant were to come in today. And we'll fight hard to win that business and retain it and grow it. We're fierce competitors because we believe in our product. It creates great jobs for the community. We have 100 of them in Southern Utah, growing that every day. We think that's important, and so I hope that answers your question. We would not utilize the open access network.
Okay.
Anything else, council? I just want to say thank you. I appreciate the presentation, appreciate you coming out here to give it. And I think it's been good information, education for the council. Before I let you go, Mayor Hart, Dale, anything?
Well, you did an excellent job, and I'm very grateful. You gave us 40 minutes of your time, which I hope you found useful and productive. Let me further say, and I'll go grab, I've been burning through cards today. I'll leave them for all of you. If you have any questions, any inquiries, any curiosities, I'm presuming you might, and we'd welcome them. So please, let's continue this conversation. I think we can answer any kind of questions you may have and just be good strategic community advisors on things that you need to think about as a council. We respect that.
Sounds good.
Thanks for your AV. All right.
Thank you again. If we have any questions, we're just going to call Tyler. Okay, but thanks. Council, we got something special. It's not on the agenda. I'm going to do it anyway. Last Thursday? I was thinking it was Friday night. It was date night, but it was Thursday. Thursday night, we had the annual Princess Pageant. We have a new Miss Santa Clara, and she has a new court. Miss Santa Clara is Sarah Blodgett. Stand up, Sarah. I'm going to have you come up and sing in a minute, so kind of get ready. No, but she's the daughter of Ernie and Lisa Blodgett, and her dad is here. Ernie is here. Appreciate him being here. Her first attendant is Addie Ashton. Stand up, Addie. It's good to see you. She's the daughter of Adam and Annie Ashton. And Sophie Jester is the second attendant. She's not here, right? But she is the daughter of Mike and Crystal Jester. And is Lainey here? She's not. Okay. Miss Santa Clara Spirit is Lainey Levitt, daughter of Greg and Michaela Levitt. They have one every year in the royalty. The Levitts do, and they did a great job. But the pageant, I was able to attend the pageant. We were missing the MC. We won't talk about that, but I was able to attend the pageant, and they did a great job. Let me tell you, we have a very special Princess Royalty who, from everything I saw and heard at the night, have already bonded. They're great friends already, and it should be a very enjoyable year for them. I know I'm going to appreciate working with them at Swiss Days and all the fun stuff coming up. You've got the rodeo parade coming up. Is that the first time you're going to get in the parade? The Dixie Roundup parade. So look forward to that. And Sarah has a wonderful voice. She sang a song and it was captivating that night, and we appreciate that. And Ashley Ashton, excuse me, is a tremendous artist. Very well put together. She was voted Miss Photogenic as well for the evening. And so congratulations to you two girls. We appreciate you. If you ever want to come to these meetings and learn more about wireless, we'll make sure you get invited, as well as any other, any times if you need anything from us, just make sure you ask. Council's been very supportive of the Princess Royalty in the past. You guys have a big part of Swiss Days, and so I hope you're getting excited for that. I think the community is going to be excited to get to know you better, and so that typically will happen at Swiss Days. But I want to thank Monica. Monica Bracken is the chair, the head boss, cheerleader, whatever you want to call it, of the pageant. I signed her up, council, for another 5 years the other night, just so you know. No.
Salary.
I tried to sign her up for another 5 years. She does a great job, and it really was an enjoyable evening. And so thank you. Appreciate you guys being here. Questions for the Royalty Council? Okay. Thanks, Leos. Appreciate you. And thank your parents. I hope they know what they've signed up for. See you later. Okay. Item number 2 is a discussion regarding a zoning ordinance amendment to allow increased density in a PDR zone for affordable housing projects. I appreciate the Planning Commission. Mark, tell him he doesn't get credit for attendance if he walks in, sits down, and then leaves. He left his notebook, so maybe he'll be back. Okay, all right. Now, and I appreciate the Planning Commission being here. And I want to invite you to participate in this discussion as we get going. This is something that is facing the city. We have a multitude of issues regarding affordable housing and the lack of affordable housing in the community. People unable to rent homes, people unable to purchase homes because of the prices. And so it's a real issue in Washington County. Council discussed this, it's our last meeting or work meeting, and felt like this was something that we wanted to bring Planning Commission and get your thoughts on, have a discussion as a council to making some modifications within the PD ordinance that maybe could help address some of that. And we've had some presentations lately from Robert Smith, who's looking at a piece of property west of the Arcadia, out on 400 East and Ivans, about wanting to pursue some tax credits for affordable housing within his project out here, his proposed project. Right now, probably wouldn't be allowed under the current ordinance with the limitation of 30 units. And so we're talking about being able to either remove that or include affordable housing as a component where that can increase. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob and let Tim kind of walk us through it.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. On the screen, we have the section of the ordinance we're going to talk about. Most of you know that in Santa Clara, multifamily housing is only allowed in the PD zone, right? That's the only zone we have for multifamily housing. And that's chapter 68 of the zoning code. In the PD zone, we also have this section 68.050, a density bonus criteria. And so you're all familiar. We've had projects come through and ask for that density bonus. That takes it from a base of 8 up to a possible maximum of 12 units per acre. If they meet those criteria, hopefully we get superior design out of those requests. So Rock, if you can scroll down a little more. So right there, perfect. In that section, there's paragraph C, which has caused some grief, like the mayor said, for Robert Smith. We've got Silverado project that's come in and talk to the city, and trying to think, I think there's been another one. Anyway, number C in there says, and this is under the density bonus section, it says an apartment project is limited to 30 dwelling units per project, unless the proposed project is a senior housing project with half or more of the units designed for single occupancy. And that's where the paragraph ends right now. And as you recall, when Robert Smith was here a month ago or a few weeks, one of the options that came up was to put in a provision to affordable housing as a way to, exempt that 30 unit limitation. So simply added another sentence to that paragraph, says, or is an affordable housing project meeting the criteria for federal tax credits or similar state affordable housing criteria. So if they met that criteria, then that 30 unit thing would not come into play. Just quickly, a little bit about this low income housing tax credit. If you haven't heard about it, you certainly will in the future. It's the federal government's main incentive. They use financial incentive to promote affordable housing. This is a report that the state puts out. It was done by University of Utah, Envision Utah, and a bunch of others. Talks about various housing strategies. And I'll just read one sentence. Under the federal housing tax credit, it says the low-income housing tax credit supports the majority, parentheses, approximately 90% of all affordable rental housing in the United States. So that's a big project. And it's through the federal tax code, IRS. If you buy these affordable housing tax credits, then it's a deduction on income taxes, whether corporations are typically the ones who buy them. So anyway, and there's a cap set nationally. I don't know how many billions it is right now, but then they allocate an allocation to each state based on population primarily. Utah's program, the low income housing tax credit, is managed by the Utah Housing Corporation. And and if you go to their website, they have information on this program. Every year, their next, and I don't know if it's annually or more than, or twice a year, but the next round of applications are due in September. I know Robert Smith indicated he was trying to meet that September deadline. They get more requests for projects than they have money to allocate. So they have a point system where they rank projects and how much bang for the buck, you might say, how much affordable housing they get. The project, if it's awarded, has to be or is rent restricted for a minimum of 15 years. Some projects will go beyond that if they get more benefits from the state, then the state will often ask for a little longer period. But the minimum time frame is 15 years that they have to maintain these rent restricted units. Typically, in a project, it's not all rent restricted. They have three criteria, but two of the criteria are very similar, and that is that it's called. Let me see what so this is just a little more about the low-income housing tax credit. It says to participate in the program, the project must dedicate, i.e. set aside at least one, and these are options, no less than 20% of the project units must be set aside for tenants whose incomes are 50% or less of the area median income. Okay, that's one option, the 20-50 rule. Or no less than 40% of the project units must be set aside for tenants whose incomes are 60% or less of the AMI. Then the third option is they could do income averaging. It's a 40% of the project units must be both rent restricted and occupied by tenants whose average income limit in the project is 60% or less. So anyway, 20% of the units or 40% of the units, the rest often will be market rate units. So you don't have just an enclave of affordable housing units. They're mixed in with other apartment units. So anyway, one option one then to make this to promote the affordable housing is to exempt affordable housing that meet the criteria for the federal tax credits. We put in there meet the criteria instead of approved by, because project may meet the criteria and be a very worthy project, but the state may not have enough money to allocate a tax credit for them. So anyway, that's one thing on the wording. Option 2 is simply delete this 30 unit limit altogether. And the reasoning on that is you're in a PD zone. The PD zone gives the council, planning commission and council great flexibility to deny or ask modifications for a project. So if you feel it's too big, too dense, whatever, in that PD zone, the council already has the discretion to ask for modification. So the 30 unit limit, in reality may not be needed. So anyway, those are the two options we've thrown out, but first one, I guess is an incentive, you might say, that in order to get more than 30, then they have to do an affordable housing element. So I don't know if you have any questions for me, but it's.
So what percent of the units would need to be affordable?
At a minimum,
Yeah.
it's 20%. What the applicants make application to the Utah Housing Corporation, and they go through a process of approval, negotiation, whatever. They end up, the applicant, if they're approved, they sign a deed restriction that basically is recorded in the county recorder's office. It's called land use LURA, something land use restriction. That it's recorded in the county recorder's office. But, so a minimum of 20%. That criteria.
And that's part of the state mandate anyway. So we don't, if they were to present us a project to be an affordable housing project, they've got to have that 20% minimum. And we can increase according to quality from 8 to 12 units per acre. And so, I'm looking at it and I'm wondering, other than to give somebody an idea of what we would look at, I don't know why we need C in there. It just, because under our guideline, we've already got the densities. So we don't need to change the densities, and with the state mandate to be qualified as an affordable housing, they've got to meet that criteria, and the state will actually determine that, or they won't give them any money. So I don't know that we need to even.
Well, I think C is there to avoid somebody buys 600 acres and builds a great big building out there. It's a big complex. Is that why C is there in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, to me, we can limit the numbers by the size of the project, whatever we want. But at the same time, if it's a dense, a PD zone density, the greatest is 8% unless they do meet the numbers, and then it can go, 8 units, and then it can go to 12 units. But in that process, the state reviews and gives them their credit. So to me,
The 30 dwelling unit cap was put in the ordinance when the affordable housing wasn't really an issue. It was put in more to, at least my recollection when we put it in, was to disperse the apartment projects across the city, so they weren't all in one location. The general plan has medium dense residential spread throughout some of the undeveloped areas of the city, but even in the downtown and down on the entrance to the city and up on the heights, it's dispersed in the South Hills. And I think the intent of the council was to not impact any one neighborhood with all of the units, to disperse them throughout the city so So we provided for them, but they weren't all in one place. What we found though is that we get a tremendous amount of pushback from the residents when we try to do one. We tried higher density in the downtown, and you guys have sat through the meetings. We tried it down in toward the rocks, down off Arrowhead. Same thing. We try to do these things and we just get a ton of pushback. The areas that don't seem to get the pushback are the real large, expansive, undeveloped areas like Black Desert, north of Harmons. And that's where the projects that Bob mentioned are kind of being dreamed up in those areas. I'm not an apartment builder. From what the apartment builders tell me, there's a scale of a number of units where you can, it starts to become feasible to be able to do it. And that scale seems to be above 30, seems to be over 100. So, I mean, we could eliminate the cap. I like option one a little bit because of the incentive to, I mean, if we eliminate the cap, there's no incentive to make them affordable. They could all come in, they could do a large project at market rate, and we would have to approve it. So but if they present the right, architecture and site planning and the quality stuff that Bob's talked about that we've done in the past, they could probably get it through. I'm intrigued with the incentive of producing some actual affordable units mixed in with market rate that I think could tend to keep the quality, to keep it from dropping off, the mixture of that, and provide the opportunity for some of these single moms and seniors. I mean, it's not just young people. These are families. Several of us are participating in the, what's it called, Lena? The Housing Affordability Council that's area wide, where all the cities are talking. I don't know if any of the planning commission has been able to, and I'll get you guys the link. They meet like every month or two and have presentations from architects and builders and regulators and stuff to try and come up with ways that we can maybe get some affordability back into the housing and provide the housing for the people. You guys are aware we're hiring a new city. We hired a new city planner. Nothing to do with Bob. Bob's going to be here for a while and we love him to tears. But we have more work now for somebody than we can really ask Bob to do in his retired status. He likes to fish as much as I do. And yeah, maybe more. And he's able to go more now, which is I'm really jealous of. So, but we've hired a new planner as we were going through the interviews. And Gary's run into this trying to hire linemen in the power department. We get yeses. We'd love to come down there. We love your community. We're ready to go to work. And then they come down here and look for a place to live. And then they call back Monday and I get a sob story from Brock saying, well, we came down, we looked for a house, we can't find a place that's in our price range, or we can't come. So now we either have to really sweeten the deal and try and entice them to come, or we don't get them. And that's happened. Both of those have happened to us. When we go to hire firemen, when we go to hire policemen, when the school district goes to hire teachers, everybody's facing this. And I'm not even thinking about service workers, like people who work at the hospital, people who work fast food. All we're producing is, I'm going to say it, fat cat retirement homes. If you've got a lot of money in your pocket, you can move to St. George or to Santa Clara, buy a nice home and be really happy. But if that's all we provide housing for, who's going to take care of us when we get a little older? Who's going to bag our groceries? Who's going to come to respond when we have a fire or an EMT call? We need those people in our community. So we need places where they can live. And our AMI now is 65 plus, $65,000. Think of all the people out there that you know that don't make that a year. That's the AMI. And think of all the people that, I mean, they're not even close to that. So, you know, the 2040, or the 2050, the 4060 will provide some of that housing and that rent control for 15 years. And if we do these projects in stages, that can be extended out. We're not just building super high-end stuff. We're going to have places for those people where they can live in the community.
Some cities even make that a requirement on all their new
Mhm.
buildings because it's such a huge issue. Like you say, Mayor, we like going to Harmon's and having somebody check our groceries, but they're not paying them $40 an hour at Harmon's.
Exactly. There's a number of people now who drive every day from Colorado City. It's they can find a place to rent in Colorado City that they can afford. So they make that commute, that hour commute to a job over here. We need some housing here. And so I like the incentive of option one. The fact that for one of these projects to get approved, say I can't remember how many units Robert had. Yeah, so 80 new units that potentially could get approved if he went through the process and fall within the PD guidelines for density and quality of design and stuff. And in doing that, almost 20, can't do the math in my head, 16 units would fall in that, 50% of AMI. So somebody making, less than 40,000 a year could have a place to rent that they could afford. The rents are based on what they can afford and controlled there. That would be huge for Santa Clara to be able to do that. Get the mic.
The only way that Robert Smith can get those 80 apartment units is that he spreads the density out of a much greater area where 2/3 of the project is single detached units. So he couldn't with the density cap at 12 units per acre, and to get those apartment units, it's true of everybody else or the other people who are proposing this. They have to be able to spread their density over a much larger project with primarily single housing.
That's the one, I don't call it a downside. Santa Clara, the maximum you can get is 12. And you have to apply some cost to get to 12 into your project. I mean, St. George, you can go to 18, 22. So we don't allow them to get that many. So we've already that unit land cost per unit, or that land cost per unit is already higher out here. So these are only going to come in on probably bigger projects, like Bob says, the larger area projects. But we still have, 3 or 4 of potential for 3 or 4 of those types of projects out in that area of town. And I think you could even do one down here. If they got all the property owners together. It wouldn't be a big one, but I think they could still do one. But you probably take out I just don't see them happen on some of these vacant lots like we hoped would happen when the ordinance was first written. But enough from me. Let's hear from the council. Let's hear from the planning commission what your thoughts are, concerns.
I have a couple quick questions. So if we kept like option 1, can they come in and not ask for the bonus, but still do affordable housing? They could do 8 and be above 30 if they had enough land or were spread out enough. Or do they have to get the bonus to also be able to do more than 30? That was my question. Are we requiring the density bonus to get above 30?
Yeah.
Okay.
Reality is project.
Use the mic.
A project at a density of 8 is going to be tough to be an affordable housing project. I think, Ben, I'm sure you can appreciate that.
You're not going to make it.
Not going to make it.
Well, 12 is probably not even.
Yeah,
gonna make it.
12's not. 12 on its own doesn't make it. It only makes it when you spread 12 units per acre over, in Robert Smith's case, he's got 20 acres out there. So, and the fact that 2/3 or 3/4 of his project is single detached units allows him to put the rest of that density into some apartments.
You know, and we can eliminate C and try and provide the incentive some other way. Don't know what it is yet. But that is an option.
One of the things that density is still the issue. That's the only way you're going to be able to make it affordable is if they can get a subsidy from the state and subsidize it. Maybe you create 2 tiers of density, one if it's 20%, one if it's 40%, and increase the amount of density determined by
Use
the percentage of.
the density is the incentive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be another way to do it. Dan, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say on apartments, and this is the we talk affordable housing a lot, but again, nobody wants it in their backyard. Everybody talks about it, but nobody, when you get into it, 12, if you're going to get into affordable housing, that's actual, I just don't see it working. Again, on a big project, I guess you can mix it and break those up and, spread out single family on one side. And maybe that's the way we go. But if we're looking, I just don't see it working at 12 an acre and unless we get into these big projects. So, and we are tasked with, we either need to figure it out or it's going to be figured out for us. So I do think if we sit back and not do anything, we're going to be told what to do. And maybe, I would rather address it now and say, hey, look, again, we've got a project right down here off Dixie Drive that got zoned out at 22 an acre. And again, all the projects that are going out to the east and that all have those same kind of densities. I don't know if that's the answer, but there's got to be something that allows for, if we're gonna pursue this, that looks at that. And I don't know the answer on that either, because it's again, you start getting into, you read your stuff above and your stones, your tile roofs, your all that's great, but all that has a cost to it. And I would rather see stuff like, if we're going to put the money into it, let's actually put it in insulation and HVAC, and actually something that gets a return for people that are struggling to pay rent that actually is going to pay off. Upgraded HVAC and windows will probably save you $150 a month on average versus a shiplap and tile roof. So again, those are the balances we need to look at.
Well,
I don't know.
And they do actually have that through the 5 county association of governments. You can apply to get that money to do the upgrades on a regular. I mean, the money is already set aside with the housing and urban development, so that if somebody wants to do the upgrades to conserve power and water and all that stuff, there is application now for that.
Yeah.
Denny, isn't that a retrofit or a home rehab program?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not for new.
Not new construction.
It's for older homes that
Yeah.
are retrofitting. And
Yes, right.
So Ben, I guess when you're talking about this with your experience as a builder, I'm just like, I think that's a great idea that you just mentioned about rewarding those types of things. What are other things that you see that we need to do or be aware of to make more affordable housing? I mean, you're probably one of our leaders on this because you're right there in the trenches every day.
Well, and it's education for one. It's again, and I'll give you just to follow up on energy, just because energy is coming up. I mean, we're right behind on that. It's, and you look at, if we're talking affordable housing, but affordable energy we ought to talk about that absolutely as much as anything, because energy will drive every cost we've got. Utility rates in California are anywhere from 4 to 8, 10 times more than what we pay in Utah. So then you start going, and we talked about solar and all these things that are pretty soon it's going to be more expensive to heat and cool your home at night than it is during the day, because we don't have the infrastructure on that. So on that point, we came from a home in Crestview versus the home we're in right now. Our utilities have been literally $200 a month more than what we were paying up there just in a home, just because of energy, insulation, HVAC equipment. We've got a pool on this one we didn't up there. So again, there's things in that we can look at, but on this, I think to get affordable housing, we're not going to be able to do it at 12 an acre. If we're looking at that, and we're not a big community, we don't have a lot of big areas to do this, but we do. I've always been on and I think that's the way it was written. My feeling's always been, look, let's mandate X amount per a certain percentage per acre that has to go into townhomes, apartments as you develop, just so these get spread across the entire communities. And yet it just does, it's just hard to do that, because many just want their single family. But I think if we're going to tackle this, we need to look at how to address the density to incentive, because it's your land costs. It's your cost per door, $10,000 a door versus $30,000 a door. And that's a unit, that's 20 grand in that. And then the fees that go behind that, and the development cost for street and asphalt and all of, storm drains. So my feeling is we need to find a way to increase that number and yet protect us from, make it to where it's acceptable as we build out into these communities. And are we allowing maybe a little higher elevation and keeping a little more open space?
That could happen. Right now we're giving them an incentive if they do the building design and materials and site design and landscaping. I think it's a valid point that list ought to include the electrical efficiency, and also something that's coming right down the path. We're already talking about it in the water conservation plans, but the water-wise criteria, if they develop the EPA water-wise and build that into the house, give them a little bit of an incentive, either in the form of density, something like that, build that into it. But have something that we're not just going to give you 15 or 18 units the acre, but if you will do this, you can get it. If you build some affordable units in there, if you're doing water-wise, if you're doing, what's the power one? Energy.
The lead.
It's energy.
Is it lead? Is that what they are, Gary?
Yeah.
And
anyway, those types of things, build that right into the ordinance so that builder can come in here and say, yeah, I can take my density from 8 to 15, almost double it by doing
to 18
or 18, whatever.
They're looking at, to me, a density issues can change according to the affordable housing numbers. And if they meet the state 40%, 18's good.
Exactly. And maybe have a scale.
Yeah.
And award
when you change the ordinance, you're gonna incentivize those builders to do it. Like what Ben's saying, if you say, hey, if you make it lead and water and whatever, then they're gonna sharpen their pencils and do that. If we're just saying, hey, as long as each rock is that big, then we'll give you a density bonus.
That's a great point.
That's what we're rewarding them for getting beautiful rock work, to your point.
So, yeah. And again, I think we want something aesthetically pleasing, but I would argue on that I think in that is preserving more open space. Let's go a little more vertical and kind of keep some more of that open space in that. Again, that might be argued on the flip side of, well, I don't want my view corridors, but on a flat roofed home or a slightly pitched roof home, you can get, most of these apartment units are 4 stories. And that's the ideal kind of cost of construction to build them at, because you can build all that out of wood. So you're not dealing with structural steel and concrete. And so once you get out of that, it gets, that's when you start getting it a little more expensive. But 4 is kind of the optimal to get the zone, to get the densities, but it is going to exceed 4 is going to exceed our 35-foot
You
maximum.
could probably do 3 and maybe change that max to 40. I've seen a lot of 3-story stuff about 39 feet.
Yeah, you could get 3 in what we have. I think you can make that work, but 4 you couldn't. So, and I don't know if those are the answers, but it is something that, costs are going up. So it's just across the board, and we're looking at an electrical grid. And so obviously motivating people to use less energy and how that is. And there's a cost to it, but it's certainly not, it's funny because my brother and I spent a couple days just running like optimal, like ROI, what your return is on certain things, 2x6 versus going to 2x4. And we found actually a 2x4 framed wall. This is what he does with cellular, solid foam insulation on the inside, 2 inches, and then just putting an extra inch of insulation. So 2 inches on the exterior was actually more efficient than a 2x6 wall and more cost effective.
Bob, are we trying to reinvent the wheel? Does the state, for them to qualify for affordable housing, do they already have some design standards that they require? Or is it strictly the price of the units, the affordability based on 50% of the current rate in your town? Is that the only criteria they have for the dividends, the subsidies?
To my knowledge, they do not have any design criteria. The state simply uses the IBC, IRC, those codes that are adopted. Most of this project, as I understand it, and I'm not an expert on these affordable housing projects, but they allowed developers to bring applications to the state. Then they evaluate them based on how much affordable housing they actually produce, and they award incentives based on that. That's my understanding. And like I say, there's a deadline coming up in September for this coming, for the coming year. And they always get more requests than they do have money to allocate.
To me, we just need to build some incentives in, and I agree with Ben and
James.
That the only way we're going to get affordable housing is density levels. And to me, we incentivize the builder so that he can build affordable housing within his project. And I like what the state's done. You can't make it 100% affordable housing, but you can make it 40% affordable housing. So it's intermixed with other quality.
Yeah.
To me, it just.
And those are minimums.
Right.
You have to have at least 20%. I think if you come with an application that's 40 or 50, it looks more attractive. So, but there is a lot of flexibility built into the program, as I understand it.
Well, and for the city, to me, one of the other things that we need to do is reevaluate our 5-year plan and specify areas where we could put those units with their densities on a regular basis, so that we're not having to look at every developer that has an acre of ground wanting to come in and say, here, we want to put affordable housing there.
I have an interesting book I was reading about affordable housing, coincidentally. It was written in 1995. They showed projects all over the United States. It's interesting because they put in some dialogue from the city council meetings, and it sounded just like a nasty planning commission meeting with a bunch of pitchforks and torches. And the number one thing was this thing called NIMBY that I thought was interesting, because I think as a city council, you folks have to decide how you're going to handle the constituents of our city, because nobody wants that affordable housing. You know who lives in affordable housing is people like you and Mayor Rosenberg, when you were young marrieds and you were starving students and scrounging and all that stuff, that's the kind of people that are going to live in that affordable housing. And nobody wants that next to where they live.
He was the starving student. I was-
Oh, yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, I live.
If that's what we're getting, I'm done. Next, what's item?
Well, but you're exactly right. And that was the reason why you have a 30 unit
Limit.
maximum
Yeah,
and
right.
nobody wanted it in Santa Clara. But
Sure.
the thing that's going to happen is federally, they'll mandate it if we don't do something, and the state will mandate it. And then we don't have any options. And if we don't provide the options,
Correct.
And I think we have an opportunity right now with the projects that are just starting to get on the table. Robert Smith is exploring options, and I gotta say, I've been impressed with what he's looked at on his piece over there. The Black Desert Project has an apartment component in it. We're getting ready. That development agreement will be on council's agenda next Wednesday. So finally, the development agreement's gonna come forth, and they're gonna be coming in with project plans within that. The Regal Homes project will probably come back. The Silverado folks are looking at that piece on the east side of Harmons, and they've got a project now that has 100 and whatever acres.
There's 120, but out of that, they're not all apartments. I forget, but they have 4 buildings at least, 4, maybe 5.
They have apartments, townhomes, man caves, and
yeah.
commercial on that piece.
Right.
But there's big holdings, there are significant holdings that can provide some of this housing if we get this thing done quick enough to provide some incentive. They can be worked into those projects, and I think they'll take advantage of it. So the charge is really to the city, to the planning commission and the staff to take this and tweak it and come up with something that works and bring it back to us as timely as you can. It'd be great if we had something in place by that September deadline. I don't know if it's possible, but it would be nice but if we don't, we'll have it there for next year.
Well, maybe you could give us some direction on that, council and mayor, what do you like?
I like that energy wise and
Mhm.
water wise as an incentive. And don't be afraid to have different levels of density.
Mhm. That was a good idea, Dennis.
The affordable may kick you X number of units per acre. Doing energy wise, water wise could kick you a couple more units per the acre. The normal aesthetics that we got in there now can bump you. And if you can take advantage of all three, if a developer can take advantage of all three of those options,
right,
then it can get to that upper echelon of density. I don't know how council feels about a max. If you're okay going to 22 like the neighbors, if you're okay at 18. 18 has been around for a while.
Mayor, I was gonna say on a development side, 18 is kind of from a cost side is kind of that magic number. 22 is a bonus that these other cities have taken in, and it's been specific to certain areas.
So I would probably look at 18 as your top if they do everything and incremental that down to the 8.
Well, and we've got our zoning ordinance, the 17.68 has 4 separate. All you'd have to do is tweak those a little bit to me, and you could create your.
Add a couple and tweak those and you're probably there. Jarrett?
So I just had a concern about someone goes through all these processes, but then doesn't get the federal tax credits and doesn't actually make it affordable. How do we avoid that uncertainty for a developer where maybe they want to do it, but they're not going to know until the PD goes through if they'd even get that extra bonus, but they don't have to get the credits until they've actually put their application in. It seems like we put them in kind of a rough, precarious position on that particular part of it. Like the energy efficiency and all that is easy to see on a PD and you just enforce that. But
And maybe that's all they get on the initial one until they lock up the credits.
Well, I think we had also
the state.
discussed, didn't you mention this, Bob, where in some communities they'll put a
There's a deed restriction. we
A
talked
deed
about.
restriction, exactly, that certain percent of it has to have these types of rent.
Yeah, I think if they did that, the tax credit's kind of on their side of the table.
Correct.
If they come up with the commitment to deliver 20% to 50% of the AMI, and we have the deed restriction in place and all that language is part of their approval, and then we would have to verify that. St. George there's a housing. I mean,
Housing authority. so we think-
yeah, I mean, we have a housing authority too. Well, no, we have a building authority.
Yeah.
But St. George has a housing authority, and I think they kind of administer those under the CDBG program, who's eligible to fill those units, right?
They've had various programs. Years ago, we had a down payment assistance program in St. George where we basically said if they met the state criteria, that way that we knew they were locked into the state requirements of the 15-year, time limit and income. So the city people didn't have to do the income qualifications. We let that to the housing authority, and even the 5-county helped out on some
I
things.
think we can do some research on that. I mean, and that's going to be part of this new city planner's role, would be to help facilitate those units and kind of
Well,
maybe
I think, like-
oversee that there's somebody checking that.
I think that's a good point, is that whether or not they get the money from the feds or the state or whoever, we don't care, as long as they are providing affordable
And
housing
the deed restriction.
and we do some sort of a deed restriction.
They could move forward with their project without the money from the state. If they get the money from the state, then they're obviously going to be in a,
Yeah.
You just have to change the verbiage because it can't just be that they,
meet the tax
Meet-
credits.
right.
It has to just tie to the affordable housing thing. I think we can do that.
right.
Yeah.
And then we become responsible if they can't do the LURA through the state, then we become responsible for having to do the deed restrictions.
The deed restriction is probably going to be a requirement, just going through their plating and everything.
Do you think that deed restriction is a requirement to get the tax credits up front? I mean, what comes first, the chicken or the egg in that?
Yeah, I was wondering that
And
too.
I think in the way, as I understand the state program, their deed restriction, what is called their land use restriction
Oh,
agreement,
yeah.
that's recorded, comes at the end after they have, met the criteria and before they get the check or however it's handled. It's really a reimbursement thing, as I understand, these.
So we could get somebody that, I mean, we're talking about making the deed restriction part of our requirement, but we could get somebody to come and say, hey, I don't feel comfortable doing that until I know that that I'm gonna get the tax credits and,
Yeah.
and so.
And you'd have to wait till
That may
To
be part of the
record.
critical financing package. Yeah, and if they don't get tax credits, perhaps the project's not feasible. Yeah, that's the problem.
be a contingent of your final approval. Is that deed restriction, it'd have to be
So that-
recorded.
That'd sort of put them in a
Limbo.
waiting game.
Yeah. They either wait till they
Everything-
get
Get
it.
it all done. Here it is. It's on pause until I find out whether.
But if you increase the density enough, you might incentivize some builders to go ahead and do it even without,
That's what I think.
even without the
happens.
tax credits.
I believe that happens,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
I
Right.
think, and maybe there's some language that, because again, there is the possibility they're not going to get approved just based on the shortage of money,
Sure.
but
Mhm.
maybe there's a way to say, look, if not approved, you still we're going to give you that density bonus. 6 of the 18 has to be maintained in an affordable under this. And we need,
Yeah.
again, as I'm thinking through this, I'm like, okay, I don't know how much,
That would be.
we don't want to hire another person to just manage something, but there's probably somebody out there, a consultant, that we could say, hey, look, it's you hire just like you would SWIP or anything else we just got to have a third party that verifies that you're meeting all this. And then, I don't know. Yeah. Cause I don't know enough about the process to.
I think we can do some research. We can have Matt do some research and Bob can check into a couple things, maybe what they're doing in other communities. I got a hunch with the state mandate, people are already well down this road.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this isn't the first
Yeah.
community in the United States to do this.
So we should be able to find something to help you out.
And
But the point is this location is a spot that, with what's around is actually works fairly well for it. And so it's got good access to, wide public roads. So anyway, it's something we need to look at and then and just see what else we have out there that eventually we don't have a lot of land left, but
No.
So is there something we could give to Mr. Smith? I mean, it doesn't sound like we're gonna get anything changed before September. Is there something we can give him that gives him the,
You've got two
Go
meetings,
ahead.
we've got 4,
what's that?
and specials can be called.
As of right now, we wouldn't meet the ordinance.
I know.
So they would just be on hold because they can't meet the ordinance.
Yeah, we need to tweak
So
the.
how,
ordinance.
how fast, I mean, is he ready to roll on this right now? Or is
He-
this something he would be willing to wait another month if he knew there might be another?
He's got a September deadline, right?
Yeah,
If-
he indicated in an email to me that he got concerned when I said, well, right now, this issue is before on the agenda for a week from tomorrow's planning commission, whether we're ready or not to take some kind of amendment. And Robert Smith said, well, if this is going to get delayed, then you're going to put me back a year.
But if
So,
the pot gets sweet, he may not have to wait for the tax credits to where he could still come forward with something.
Yeah, and then he can get the tax credit whenever the heck he wants. We don't care about that, right?
The
I mean, he's
other-
getting a real benefit with density.
Yeah,
He's getting 6 more units that he can,
make some money off.
or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
and he can charge for those units at least whatever would keep it affordable for others. And so he's really getting a huge benefit.
I wouldn't worry about the September deadline as a hard deadline. We want this to be done right.
Yeah.
Want to take the time necessary, but don't put it on the back burner.
All right. You just answered my question. I was gonna say, we could just pick option A for now and say, hey, we're gonna work on a bigger option, but option A right now is done.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough for anybody to meet that deadline, not knowing what we're going to require yet.
Yeah.
Today. I mean, just for the other documents he's got to put together, even if we had the ordinance ready. So let's just work to get something done. We'll try and provide the assistance to you that we need from the staff. And we can reach out to Shirlane at the HAC, and they may have some ideas that we can work into it and start the process.
One
Excellent.
question I had in the discussion that I heard is about the height, or 35. Is that one we need to adjust to be able to
Chief,
accommodate to get to that?
This is where you get to
density?
play. I knew that was what he was going to say.
and the affordable aspect just
Went away.
So we've done the impact fee facilities plan for both Santa Clara and Ivans on the public safety. A ladder truck is in both. And Black Desert, I imagine they've already talked to you about that. They've actually said, hey, we've got a place you can put a
Fire station.
fire station. And so
Can
I
put
think
if
you're
it's
gonna
built
get
by
your
the-
ladder truck, whether or not it's in the next year or
That's
next
where the-
10 years.
You know,
that's-
that bonus, the density increase pays for the ladder truck sooner.
There's the impact fee for the fire goes up
Uh-huh.
with the density bonus. That would work.
But what else on height restrictions, Chief? Can we approve a 3-story now?
actually, in the zoning code, the 35 in the PD zone is a soft cap. It's not a hard. There's a provision that says the council can modify the heights, subject.
So we could go up. So
Yeah.
now, saying that 35 feet doesn't exist, how high can you go?
High is
And this is from your perspective, from
How high
public
can you
safety,
jump?
fire.
Yeah.
Well, that's a tough question because the need for an aerial apparatus again, increases.
Sure.
But anything above 3 stories would have to have fire sprinklers.
Would 3-story have to have it?
3-story would, yes.
Okay.
Yep. So
So, but if I came in had my developer hat on and wanted to do a 4-story and I agreed to sprinkle it, what are you gonna tell me? And Planning Commission loves my building elevations, by the way.
They're pretty.
In this scenario, and the public even is carrying me around on the streets.
Oh, yeah.
Now what are you gonna say?
You're recruiting Olympic high jumpers, 3rd floor up. They can only work on that level.
I just want to hear it from your perspective, take all the clamor and the public out of it. What's from the building code and from the fire code? What can we do?
That really puts a lot of demand on our services. You know, when it goes higher, you have to have other things involved, standpipes, fire sprinklers again, a good safety plan, access for apparatus to reach that. Just
Those are all doable,
those,
right?
they're doable.
There's nothing there that's not a solvable issue.
Yeah, and we just refer to the fire code and make sure that we meet those requirements in the fire code.
So Mayor, maybe your question to Randy, if I restate it, are you asking him, can you survive without a ladder truck
No,
with 4-story?
No,
Or do
the
you have
ladder
to-
truck's coming. But is there anything other than the ladder truck that is needed to raise the height? And I'm not promoting it. I just want to know if we open that door, what's going to hit us?
Pandora.
Yeah, I know. Because I say, I entered my imaginary world there for a minute.
Yeah. Well, I think you're gonna have, I don't know, standpipes and different
Sure.
things that.
Those I can build that into the
Yeah.
cost of my building, right, Ben?
Yeah. Well, you're going to have to probably sprinkle any apartment building. I think
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah,
going to
so it's
be
gonna be sprinkled.
part of it.
I've already built that into my pro forma, but
And again, in an apartment building, there's certain industry standards as far as, lightweight concrete, things like that. And that's, I mean, they have to meet certain fire codes. It's not, so that's all going to be there. I was actually just trying to say, I mean, you take height wise, I think you're going to be with parapets probably on a minimum like 42 feet for 4-story by the time, because that's going to give you a 9-foot ceiling. So it's
42 feet versus 35.
Not that much.
Not very much, considering I just went from a single family residential to a 4-story apartment building.
And keep in mind, these are generally 9-foot ceilings. They put all the ductwork in that kitchen there with it, so and drop that to 8 feet. That's all dry. So, or 9'2", I guess, is what they go and
Sure.
drop 2 layers of drywall.
And I know that as a developer, I'd have to locate that in the right place on the project and
And it just comes into the open space thing.
To
Would we
get-
rather see a little bit more vertical and some more
yeah.
landscape? And I think so. I think it's,
The reason I asked the question is it came up in the Black Desert Development Agreement. They'd like to go 4-story on the hotel, but it's kind of in a bowl. It's like a hotel in the middle of a football stadium. So if you're looking at it from the outside, you're seeing the 2-story sticking up, but it's a 4-story structure. So, but
And we
when they
wouldn't
said
look at
4-story, I thought,
wasn't
ooh,
that-
Chief's gonna love that.
I don't think that site's the one we ate at. I don't think you'd ever, again, I think they have the same thing. I think you can get those in a pretty low profile that just,
Yeah.
think of all the HVAC is generally specific to the,
So I think of what I'm
The
hearing,
growth.
we don't need to change the ordinance to go that way. Planning Commission can grant it. There's no objection to do it. So if they do the good enough job on their site planning and their grading, that could happen under the existing ordinance. Okay, that answered my question. What other questions you guys have? Okay, you ready to take it back and go to work? Let me talk about your planning commission attendance. You need help?
It's actually better than the combined attendance.
I would hope so.
We took,
Yeah.
I'm tickled to see 3 and I had 4 and if he's still on the phone out there,
he just texted and said he had an emergency he had to go take care of.
tell him we're
Bring his
keeping his
stuff.
notebook.
I told him that.
that's
what
what
I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna start
grab it.
doing.
Well, he's
Just-
probably offended because the nameplate says Mark West and nobody wants to sit there. So that's Mayor, that's why No,
We
I
did-
think we usually get good attendance. What do we, I mean, we have 5 people, probably 5 or 6 every.
We had to postpone one this summer. And last commission meeting, we had a quorum. And
Are you using the alternates or do you need alternates?
I don't think the alternates have even,
I don't know.
Oh, it's time then. Okay. I'm fishing for that. I want to make sure you guys aren't postponing meetings and you're having good representative discussion.
yeah. we
I
postponed
think
one.
summer was a little hard on us. I think that's just,
It's always hard.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just tough to make, but I don't think besides that, we've had any.
I'll look at the list and if there's not an alternate, we'll get one.
I think you ought to get one.
Okay.
Somebody might step down.
Don't even think about it. You can retire from your work all you want, but
Well, we have a good, like Mark Hendrickson and Mark Weston both bring a lot of experience to our group, and of course Marv and Shelley and stuff. But I think having these folks that are involved in the construction stuff that really.
it's valuable. I
that's really
agree.
awesome.
It's needed on the planning commission. That insight. Okay, council, any other direction? Wendell, you've been quiet.
Quiet.
Okay.
I like the discussion, though. I think we need to do this. We need to probably increase the amount that we can allow. We need to move towards affordable housing. We have people in those categories that need the housing.
They need places to live.
I think that there's a huge buy-in that has to happen for the whole community. And I think anything that the city council can do is you talk to your friends and neighbors that we're not turning it into a bunch of trailer parks like Ben wanted to do out at his place. But this is students, this is retirees, this is young families, like you say, single
families.
parent families. We all have kids. Or we were all in that situation. So I don't think it's a terrible thing. So
Okay.
there's just, nobody wants it in their backyard, that's
Sure.
sure.
And like I say, the sites we got right now, luckily, they're really not in anybody's backyard.
Yeah.
If we do them, if we get the interest and do them quickly. So,
Well, and there's even residents who have called me to say, I want something affordable here because I want my kids to come back here.
Yeah.
They're just not the loud voices.
Yeah.
So
Well,
they are there. There's a lot of them who are actually there and would support it.
I think
They're
they are
just not
too.
the
And
loud
we may get some clamor. I mean, we're just going to have the political will, going to have to buck up and have the political will to see through the clamor. And
Well, I
meet
think
the
we can
need.
preempt that by our discussions that we have with the people in our community.
We've been honed by the clamor, by the way. We're sharp, we're refined.
Okay.
That fire for about a year and a half was pretty good.
Pretty fierce.
Okay. Any questions for us or comments you guys want to make? Anything else for the planning commission? Go to work. Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks.
Are we done?
Yeah, if you can stick around if you want. And
Oh,
the
I-
carbon-free power sales contract is some good stuff.
I think I've had my fun.
Mayor, this was noticed up. We have a couple other ordinance amendments and this was one of them for next Thursday, but it sounds like we're going to probably hold off on that. And
At least put it on the agenda for discussion.
well, it's on for a public hearing right now.
Oh,
It's already
yeah.
been-
I don't know that you need public.
Yeah,
If you're not ready for public hearing.
Been noticed up. We can have a discussion maybe and just kind of recap what we talked about, but not pursue the public hearing. So I'll have Selena just listed as a discussion item.
Thanks, guys.
Mayor, I'm gonna have 30 young men waiting for me here in about 10 minutes, but I just wanted to tell you on the two coming up here, I'm in support of both of those. The only thing I did ask on the left turn lane, are we gonna add a decel lane? And I know I'm jumping the gun, coming eastbound where we're removing those two planters. Are we gonna have a way for cars turning right onto Gates Lane there?
I don't believe so. In what I've seen from Dustin, there was not a decel lane that I'm aware of.
There, you could though.
Yeah, you.
There's going to be room there. And
There's enough-
if there was room, it
Yeah.
would probably be good to get that traffic.
We'd have to tweak it a little bit. But if you change the stripe, it'll increase the cost with the striping removal and repainting. But if you reconfigured it, I think you could do it.
Are we talking about putting a light in at the same time?
The light's not warranted yet, but we're getting the left turn lanes in. Right now, there's no
You
left
haven't
turn
been
lane.
parked at 3:30 trying to get on.
Well, and we can ask the warrant study for it.
I think this will do a lot right there. Having that left turn lane. Eventually, that's probably the next light on that road. I think we all agree.
Yeah, I
there,
think
but-
this is the next light we're looking at in the downtown, and getting the left turn lane is like the first stage.
And I don't remember the cost of a light, but they're 300,000 if I remember.
300
right.
grand,
If I-
300 to 320,
So-
depending on the lanes.
What's money?
What? Anyway, I hate to
Just
step out, but
light.
I did want to let you know, I've looked at both those and I do think we need what you're going to propose now. And
You haven't heard what I'm going to propose yet.
I've read it. Have you changed it?
No.
So if I may be excused, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
I think there is a signal in the traffic capital facilities plan.
I want to say we did do one. I'm not
Or did I?
100%, but I believe Jack had one in there.
Yeah, I think so. So as soon as it's warranted, we could probably move down that road. We just have to wait till it meets warrant. Okay, back to the nukes. Gary?
Hey, Mayor, Council, can we get the
I'll get back to
slide up there? From talking with our last UAMPS meetings, I talked with Jack and Kelton Anderson, who does a lot of this, the graphs and that for UAMPS. We had talked about going up to adding an additional 3 megawatts out of the carbon free, but the projection for the growth of the city, it's not quite warranting 3 more. It's maybe 2 at the most. So that's kind of the discussion we're going to follow today. This graph kind of shows right here. This one is if at our current purchase of 3 megawatts, the tan right along the bottom there is our 3 megawatts. And scroll down to the next one. This is just pretty much the same thing. It shows that 0 line is our load. So in the winter months, at the bottom underneath that 0 is our, if we have too much power for long, we're breaking right at even if we have 3 megawatts of the carbon free. If you scroll down to the next one,
Gary, what does HLH and LLH stand for?
that's high load hours and low load hours.
Okay.
So this one kind of shows the black there is our load that, or actually a resource. Go scroll down to the next one. That one shows a little bit better. So if we jump up to this is actually from in 10 years from now. This shows our load April 2030 to 2031.
That's when the carbon free comes online, right?
Yes. Yep. But I kind of wanted to show you what in 10 years from now, what our load's going to look like and what our resource is going to look like.
Does it account for growth?
Yes.
Okay.
This is a 3.5%
Okay.
growth rate.
Does it account for, are we losing any of those base load?
Yes, we lose it shows we lose the San Juan. This graph takes into account we lose San Juan, and see this graph. The San Juan is that lime green, and there's no lime green in this graph because we've lost San Juan by
San Juan.
2030.
Okay.
I thought we're losing Hunter also.
Yes, Hunter will be gone by then as well. Scroll down to that next one down. So if we jump up to 5 megawatts, then we do go long in the shoulder months. But that does help us in our peaks too. So that's kind of where they cut off, where instead of going to 3 would be even more long at 3 extra megawatts, a total of 6. So I'm suggesting, and so is Jack and Kelton with UAMPS, with our load growth at 3.5%, and a total of 5 megawatts. This is what our load would be. And that's what they're suggesting. So I don't think there's a need to go more than that right now.
What'd be interesting is to see the cost of the market versus the cost of what we're projecting with the carbon free. See what, I mean, there could be a tremendous difference
Oh, yeah.
in the market versus our carbon free. So this is load usage, but it's not dollars and cents, right?
Yeah.
And so I mean, if we don't, we're going to buy on the market.
Way fuzzy.
Yeah, I know.
10 years away, what you're gonna be paying for power.
Yeah.
Well,
It's hard to say what we're going to be paying on the
But
market.
when we're talking about this carbon free, we're not talking about solar and wind. We're talking about buying in some more of the nuclear, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Two more megawatts of
Okay,
nuclear.
that's good.
And it's,
And that's capped at $58 a megawatt.
it's
Right. To me, that's
it's the other options. It's hard to guess.
But it's $58 plus transmission. That's from the plan. It's at 58. Then you got to add transmission and that to it. So, but it's,
What's transmission cost? Do we know what that's gonna be? Ted?
I haven't heard yet what that's going to be. Um,
I'm just trying to compare with where we're at.
yeah. But we're paying.
yeah, I've struggling with this, thinking that that's all we're gonna need is 2 more megawatts. Brock kind of feels the same. We think we should need more than that in 10 years, but it's hard to predict. It's hard to predict what our growth is actually going to be and what our needs are going to be. But
Well, and I wonder with the growth, the growth is 3%, but does that factor, I mean, commercial and what commercial, just the loads that they require versus, we grow at 3%, but you bring in potentially here, we talked to now 240 units, which, I mean, that's far more than, our 3%. I mean, that's a huge number.
That's like 10%, right?
Yeah.
For current households.
Yeah. And so, but now understanding that maybe apartments to a, 1,800 square foot home, energy demand probably going to be less, but, it's just hard to look at and say, okay, what, go to the Silverado piece and what's a commercial aspect that's going to come in there and don't know. And what's that demand? So it's hard. I know we even had the discussion with Gary about it, do you do 4 and say, well, we got the generators. Do we run the generators more? We just run them much more consistent throughout the year and you stay low, but it's hard to compete when you say possibly at like 6 cents a kilowatt hour in that range, 6.5 cents. It's hard to say not to take that cheap power when we don't know where gas is going to be.
Well,
That's the hard dilemma as you sit and look at. I mean, 6.5 cents is just so cheap to say, how do you not just grab a hold but
your generators, if we turn those on, it's like 14 cents a kilowatt versus 5.8. I mean, to me, if we can get some more of this carbon free from the nuclear side, if it goes, I mean, but we're still guaranteed to get out if we need to get out. So to me, I would say I'm with you. I think we purchased the 2 megawatts and then you may 5 years down the road realize you're going to need some more and then you may have to hunt somewhere else. But
and then I don't know exactly the dynamics of purchasing later on. If it's all sold, it could be. I know they'll give the members the first right of refusal and the members of UAMs. So there's a possibility of purchasing more later on down the road.
well, and in the plan that Doug presented, they could actually increase the amount of production in some of the cells, depending on the demand need too. So that, to me, we'd made a big mistake a few years ago when we bought Enron, banking on the future, and Enron manipulating the market, and we paid 19 cents for the future. We were paying 4.5 cents, but to bank on that, and we ended up paying back the city of Santa Clara and St. George $10 million. It was like buying futures and we lost the bet. But this way, I think we are hedging a whole lot better with the plan, with the federal government supporting it and everything going forward. To me, it's a lot better. I don't like the 27% efficient solar and wind power.
No,
And I do think that in the future, there will be opportunities to get more. It might not be at the lowest, might be a little bit more expensive, but I do believe as the demand and that more, they expand that to produce a little more, there'll be opportunities to get some more. It just might not be at the current price that we have.
So Gary, what happens to this surplus? Like, where does that power actually go? Do we have to pay someone to take it? How does that work?
it's just there. It's
They
just,
can go back.
Do we sell it on?
That can go onto
Back
the
to
market.
You may sell it at a loss, but you.
yeah,
sell
yeah,
it back.
yeah, there's a possibility to sell it.
Well, I think UAMPS has been able to always, excess has been at market rate, whatever the market rate is. And so you've always, if you had excess, you could make money on the excess.
Mm.
It's just like where we buy this now.
Mm-hmm.
There's other places that are just the opposite and they buy ours, like in the northern states. The wintertime, their demands are higher and ours are less, so that can go on the market and be sold. Some places need.
Do you get a market rate when you sell it back? Or
It's a market rate, right?
I'm not sure.
UAMPS has a rate that
Yeah.
they use.
When we go on, like when he goes on to buy power, or Christelle goes on to buy power, I mean, there's a rate. If you're like in those low load hours, it's really cheap because it's usually probably somebody who's long and just trying to sell it back. And we can even go on ourselves and say, if we know we're long, we can go and put a price out there and sell it ourselves, or we can tell UAMPS. I believe we can tell UAMPS, hey, we're going to be long, put it out on the market, or we do it ourselves. Because we see those every once in a while on the market. So you'll see somebody is, instead of UAMPS being the seller, it'll be, Wasatch, or it'll be Heber, or St. George will actually have, I'm selling 2 megawatts, but it's usually at a discounted price because they're just trying to recoup anything they can.
Yeah, so yeah, that it would most likely be at a loss, but at least it's, something. Any other questions?
So the recommendation is to buy 2 more.
Yeah, that's what Kelton, that's what kind of he figures our kind of our sweet spot is, just 2 megawatts.
So this would come back to council as an action item.
Yeah. Probably next week.
I guess, yeah, it just would be nice to know just like at least a rough estimate of what we'd lose in that surplus compared to what we'd make up and not having to buy so much peak power during the summer.
Yeah.
My inclination is we'll come out ahead through that whole process. That's so expensive during those high peaks. But, and I trust
some years
Kelton has probably thought about that.
Yeah, some years it is. Some years, the last several years, it hasn't been that bad. The market hasn't been too bad. That's why we only have 5,000 hours on our generators, because the market's been cheaper than it is to generate. But this year it was expensive. So it's just hard to say what the market's going to be, what we can buy it for or sell our surplus for.
And I guess the other, so I like Denny's idea of a hedge, and who's not to say we get to this point and our growth hasn't been where it needs to be, or there's some new energy efficiency. Can we just sell that 2 of those megawatt hours? There's probably somebody that's going to want it. So we're not totally just locked into this.
No, I'm pretty sure we can. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure we can sell it.
Sure, you can sell it. They let you sell out of all the other projects.
Yeah.
if you need to.
So I think
And
it's
usually buyers.
I think it's a pretty smart hedge to go to 5, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Are you okay with that? Thanks, Gary.
okay. I'll probably have it on the agenda for next week to ask for approval for that. Thank you, Council, Mayor.
Brock, you doing the turn lanes?
Yeah. Well, so we've had this discussion a little bit, talking Santa Clara Drive and the traffic that's there and trying to improve traffic flow along Santa Clara Drive. So one way of doing that we've discussed is to get turn lanes. And so this first one we're discussing is a turn lane at Gates Lane and Santa Clara Drive. They're on the west end. So to do that, the proposal, we have to take out the planter boxes that were installed back in the streetscape when that was done. As the picture shows, there would be moving those 8 planter boxes. I believe there's 2 more just to the west of that picture that we would remove 2. Just as a discussion, there's 2 left, and we'd have to try and run water and power to those. It just makes it just to remove those ones as well. So we actually will still go to 10, but we proposed to get a left turn lane that's heading east or heading west on Santa Clara Drive to turn left on the Gates Lane. The proposed cost from Dustin, he's proposing will be $10,800, I believe $80. We would be doing this work in-house. The staff would take their turns kind of between parks and power and public works, going and taking their parts out, capping water lines, power, and then also the demolition of just the curbing and that. So, but they're ready to, when they have time to get started to do this, as it's going to take a little bit of time. But
Now if they cap, what are they going to do with the other planters going out and around the current turn? I mean, how do they get water?
It's just cap going up, don't they?
they're going to cap, most of it comes, if I'm not mistaken, Brad can speak to it, from behind the curb is what they're looking at, if they can cap from back there, so it'll continue on. It's just
I'm a dummy.
Oh, they're not gonna do anything coming west as far as a turn line coming east?
You'll have an eastbound turning lane too. It's not on there, but it would. there's
to
no
turn
reason
left
why you could.
going north.
Yeah, well, yeah, just an eastbound to be able to turn onto Hamlin, or is that Hamlin? Onto
That's
North
Gates.
Gates Lane.
Yeah.
And
then as we just talked a little bit earlier, of adding a D cell
trying to work in a
eastbound.
right turn lane here as well on the southbound Gates Lane.
Is there enough space to do both the
I
left
think
hand?
you can. The tricky part is getting that bike lane through there. It's one of them deals where you have to cross the bike lane to get in the turning lane. You can count the pan on the gutter. I mean, the turning lanes are narrower than the through lanes. I think we've got enough width that we can make it happen. We'll just have to squeeze the striping to the north. So we take advantage of that parking that we're losing on the north as part of the westbound through. So that's why I was saying the whole thing will have to be restriped. Both sides of the intersection. I don't know what he's got in his budget, but I think you can do it. And you'd want to do it because then you're ready for the signal.
Yeah.
I have a question about so it's the south east corner where that may be commercial at some point. Are we impacting that property by taking away street parking from it? Does that matter?
They don't get to count street parking as part of their project.
And would we even want them to have street parking based off of our experience of other businesses on Santa Clara Drive?
No, I doubt it. Well, I don't know. But
I know when the thing we saw, like their front entrances, you could just pull up and walk in the front door.
One thing they could do is they could pull the sidewalk back and the curb back and put it back in as part of the project.
Okay.
I was just checking the right of way. The right of way is right behind the sidewalk. So there's no extra right of way coming down through there. The street lights are probably in an easement. Just looking at the map. There's probably a utility easement along there. I was going to ask Brad, you're going to relocate the trees that are in the medians?
Yeah, that was my question too. Can we take them up and replant them?
A lot of those trees have been there for a long time, so I don't know that we'd be able to save them, when we go to take them out.
Would you like to replace them on the outside of the sidewalk? On the private side if we got easements?
In which location? We've got trees along there now. I mean, we've got trees behind the planter boxes that run all the way.
You don't need to supplement any trees
I don't believe so.
I think for visibility, I think it would be good to have those gone.
We're just taking oxygen out of the system. What the heck? Gonna make a new ordinance that every tree you cut down, you gotta replace it somewhere else in the city. Ben's backyard.
We do that, yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to lose any trees. We want to be on a constant net growth of trees, right?
And then I was wondering, is there a need for a turn lane to go north onto Gates Lane? Does it ever back up there?
Well, the problem is you can't leave the lane. You've got to, you see the offset on the lanes on the east side? You've got to get the people into the right place as they get to the intersection. So you've got to break it apart anyway.
Okay.
You probably don't need the amount of stacking as he's got on the other direction, because that's the primary movement. So you could probably make it shorter, but you'd still want to do it so they were lined up when they got to the intersection.
I think the way it's worked on Pioneer Parkway there at Red Mountain has really been beneficial to traffic flow.
Mhm.
I mean, it just created that little turn.
A lot
lane.
safer, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tremendously better.
And I don't think it's a big dollar expense.
Okay.
Bike lanes, we're losing, you're not gonna want anybody parking. If you don't have the medians, I don't think you're gonna want the parking on the curb. You
I'm
got,
sure the neighbors to the northwest will be happy not to have any parking there if you put in that left-hand turn lane.
is this, what's his name's house? Shaw's? He's probably sold it.
The old Whitehead place.
This one right here.
Yeah.
So this is. what do
So
you
it'll
want
be on
from
the
us?
agenda for next week to approve. I'll work with Christelle and maybe might be back to Rosenberg on it to get those drawings on the other side to show in the turn lane and a left turn lane heading north and a turn lane, decel lane eastbound turning south on to Gates Lane as well. So we'll work with that, getting that on for the picture for next week. So.
All righty, cool. Anything else on this one? Staff reports, chief.
July was a busy month for us as far as numbers for our calls. We had over 140 calls and we were busy. Not necessarily with fires like you would think, but just our normal response numbers for the month. It's been kind of a weird year. You know, we've been in extreme drought, but we haven't necessarily had a lot of wildfires in our particular area. So it's kind of been odd. And you've seen the flooding. Yes, knock on wood. You've seen the flooding and stuff that's going on in Cedar and Enoch and those communities. So kind of been weird for us, you know, dealing with drought and then flooding on the other end. So
Welcome to the new normal.
yeah, strange year. We had a really good summer social last week. The weather was a little iffy, but we still had a good time. We handed out some awards for Firefighter of the Year. That went to Emma Pauling. Rookie of the Year went to Christopher Clifford. He's one of our wildland firefighters. EMT of the Year went to Jessica Harward. She's been with the Santa Clara or Ivans as an EMT for about 15 years. And then our Medic of the Year went to Devin Hill. He's one of our full-time firefighter paramedics. So it was good. Had a good party there. We're about ready to order our replacement engine for engine 33. That's our wildland engine. We just got the specs finalized and we're reviewing those. We got the quote finalized. Getting the chassis is going to be the difficult part, or the lengthy part, I should say. It's about 10 months out, so we want to get that thing ordered as soon as possible and get that coming in place. That's about it, unless you have any questions.
Jason, were you able to get with Jason Whipple?
Yes, I had a conversation with Jason. He said that there's in the process of getting a meeting set up and he'll let me know when that is. So the commissioners are aware of it and just getting the timetable to get a meeting set up. So,
Thanks.
and I'll let you know in case you want to attend that meeting as well.
How's your remodel going up at Rachel?
Remodel's just about there. We've got some furniture and stuff moved in. We're just waiting for the communications part of it. And then I think we're ready to get moved in over there.
And we're gonna come see it when?
If
Yeah,
they're
when do
ready,
you want
as
us
soon
to
as
come
they're ready,
see
we
it?
could go next week.
When you're ready, we can open the doors. And
You wanna do like a 4 o'clock work meeting before council next week? Do you need to advertise it longer? So what do you need, 2 weeks? 3 weeks?
For, to advertise next week, if you want to go at
We
4.
wanted to go next week at 4 for a special meeting.
Oh, yeah,
Need more than a week to advertise.
no, just
You
a
need
week
like
out.
24 hours.
24 hours is all you need to advertise a meeting.
So council,
Do you want it as a special or just, do we need to do it as a special meeting or just do a regular meeting? We're just going to start there and then end up here.
however you want to do it. Just whatever meets legal requirements, is all 5 of them will be there.
Okay. We'll plan on it at
I
4.
can't be there at 4.
Well,
I've
4
got
of
a
them will be there.
commitment. I can be here at 5, but I can't be there.
Can't be there at 4. You want to wait and do it in a couple of weeks?
It's up to you. It's not that big of a deal for me.
Okay. The rest of you okay? Ben?
He's
Or-
fine with it.
So meet here at 4 o'clock and we'll drive up next week. And you'll take care of the advertising, Brock?
And I'll just meet you up there. I can walk.
Or you'll just meet us, whatever you want to do. You can.
Chris will
miss
take
the
care of the
fun. We may
advertising.
take a different route.
Uh,
You want me to get ice cream? But whatever.
We can go through the car wash.
Yeah, we can check. I drove through the car wash today. I spotted up my truck. And I didn't get no ice cream.
Yeah, it's the grand opening today.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to call those boys. I did talk to the contractor on my way out the door. Be careful when you come out there. Your stacking on the exit is minimal. So if you have to wait for somebody, I guess they've got sensors on the inside that shut the car wash down until
Oh,
you
really?
move. I asked because I was a little worried about it. I pop out and you're like, there's room for one car there. And if there's somebody coming, I'm stopped. But John said that if that happens and the next guy behind you starts to come out, he said an electric eye goes off and bells and whistles sound and the whole world comes to an end and it stops. So I hadn't noticed that in any others but ours is special. But yeah, they'll get it tuned up. And I think they had free slushies or something today. Okay. Next week, 4 o'clock. Christelle, you're up. Don't say nothing. You have something to report. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I just barely posted all the Adopt a Waterway stuff online, and we've had a little bit of interest. So I sent over a few stuff to a few groups. And that's about it.
Website? Can you tell them about the website? Upgraded,
Yeah,
speed it up?
we are kind of having some issues with the website. It's just been like kind of slow lately. So we're thinking about like upgrading the server or switching over the server to something that would be quicker. I'm still looking into that, but if you do notice any issues with it, just let me know.
Conservation measures?
Yes, and then we've had a lot of meetings with the water district. I had one on Tuesday, just a technical meeting, and we're working on the landscaping ordinance. They sent over a list the other day. I can send it to you guys of recommended ordinance actions that we should take, and they're wanting the council members to look at it and go through the items and see which ones would work for Santa Clara. Just like more specific things like the water heating stuff in the houses and like Energy Star stuff and toilets and different things. that they want us to take to a work meeting and discuss. So if we have more specific items we want to discuss, they're wanting us to do that. And then we're meeting again tomorrow to discuss more on the landscaping ordinance.
Okay. Questions for Christelle? Anything else?
I have a website question.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed that the links on the main page all open in a new window or a new tab.
Uh-huh.
But everything in like the menu just stays in the same tab. Is that a purposeful thing? I don't like it when you end up on another tab, just when you click on a link.
Yeah, I can easily fix things that you think would be, so like the main page. I can
Yeah, like
make
if you
it
click
so it just
Cloud
stays in
Events, it
this-
opens a whole new tab.
Yeah,
It just makes for a lot of tabs if you're surfing too much on the city website.
okay, I'll look at that.
Okay.
Thanks for the feedback.
You've had that same problem, didn't you?
I've really had a problem with it. Mine's been working really, really slow.
Okay, anything else for Christelle? Gary?
We got just the other day, I've got the approval order draft. It's the intent to issue the approval order notice, and I signed it and sent it back, and it'll start the 30-day public comment time for that approval order for our air quality permit. So that's good news. It's pretty much done. The only thing is it required us to test our new engines every 3 years instead of every 5 years like our older engines. And when I signed that paper and sent it back to him, I commented on there that we will be requesting a change order on that approval order in 3 years if the emissions come back as low as projected by Caterpillar. The reason they send them to a 3-year testing period instead of 5 is because Caterpillar, they're a brand new engine, and Caterpillar does not have a certificate from the air quality just states that they are under the certain outputs. So they couldn't convince the air quality division of air quality to approve them for 5 years. So after we do our initial tests, and in 3 years we test them again, if those numbers are lower than our original engines, we're going to request that they change the testing time. That'll save us a lot of money in testing frequency. Trying to think what else. I reported last week a little bit on our staff. We're fully staffed now. We've got a second-year step apprentice that'll be starting next week, and then Dan Callahan, which used to work here as a journeyman, he'll be starting on the 23rd. So we'll be fully staffed. That's about it. All I can think of. Any questions?
I had a resident with solar reach out to me concerned that her bill showed a much lower number than it usually does for her solar, what she provided back. I told her to just contact Sherry. Was that the right advice, to go over her bill and look at it, make sure things were correct?
Yes. Yeah, Sherry will answered questions on our billing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Gary.
Yep.
Scott?
On the building side, our permits are pretty holding the same. It seems like we got a few more pool permits. I think with some of the residential we're having built, everybody wants a pool now, these people moving in from out of town. And hopefully that there should be a discussion one day about mandating some pool covers because of the evaporation when it comes to water and all that stuff. Probably something we should look at.
That's one of the conservation measures they're recommending, is covers for pools. That's something we could move on sooner than later.
I think it'd be a great asset to the city, especially with the water conservation, everything that's going on.
Is that
I know it came up in your meetings, but with all the pools that we're getting, seems like we're getting a lot.
Is that a land use thing, goes to planning commission ordinance change, or is that just something a policy?
I think it would probably something go back through the land use and put it in the ordinance that it's there,
Is
but I
the
don't know.
pool permit covered in the subdivision ordinance of the general or the development codes, or where's it at? The requirements for it?
It's in the, I think it's in the building.
The International Building Code, I believe, that
If it's
IBC,
in the building code, then we may not have to take it back through land use change.
maybe not.
Check with Matt and see, council, that's something that's going to be really high on the recommendation for water conservation measures. That's something we could probably implement with your discretion. So if you wanted to do it sooner.
And
I-
I'm sure you're gonna talk about the Kohler across the street maybe, and we're moving forward with that. And
Yeah, I'd probably get that in place. Whatever it takes, move on it.
On the pool cover, yeah. Okay.
and developing a PAC committee, so a policy advisory committee. It's been a long time since our policies and procedures have gone through. I talked to Brock and took that upon myself, and going to get a member from each area within the city, come sit on it, maybe once a month, every other month. We can get this thing twisted up and back up. There's some things that we probably need to add in that always said that we'd add in, we never have. So update it, and then maybe we could just talk to Brock a little bit about, if we do need to make a policy change, like a special order till every year we could meet, update it then, and we'd be good for another year. So it wouldn't be a burden on all the members that's going to sit on that, but I think that'd be a good thing for the city and make sure that our policy and procedures are up to date, just in case we have any issues. Trying to put together a fleet, just with all of our vehicles and all of our assets and things, kind of a numbering system. Remind people that, time change oil, rotate tires, make sure that we're getting our bang for a buck when we go to sell them. So something that really been paid a lot of attention to over the years, but I did it in my last career. So thought we could implement that. Not like we have a lot, but I think it would be good. So stormwater and everything's going good. A little busy with all the items, but no complaints. If you have any questions.
Thanks, Scott. Welcome back, Bradley.
Well, thank you. It's good to be back.
Where did you go?
Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Washington State, Idaho.
On your
Back.
bike?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It was a good trip.
Good for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pedaling.
Well needed
Oh.
vacation.
Travel my whole mission.
Anyway, good news. The cemetery is on secondary water now. The Public Works and the Parks crew worked together and installed a new control panel on it. A little bit older when they first turned it on because it hadn't been run for a while, but everything seems to be working good. So that's the last of the recreational or the large grass areas that was on culinary. So everything we have except for the fire department, Heritage Square and Boomer Park is all on irrigation water now. Or all our big water use places. Starting tomorrow, I've got BA Robinson come down. I contracted with them to come down and start trimming some of the dead wood out of the trees in a couple of areas where sycamore trees are leaning over and onto the house, like 3131 Santa Clara Drive. They're going to do some trimming over the house so it doesn't damage the house. So they'll start that. They're going to start at the Wolf Dog Center and work down to the Merck and do that line of trees there. And then they're all still going to do the one on the corner of Victor Street on Bud Fry's old house there that's got a lot of dead in it. And then the one by Heritage Square, they're going to take out some limbs that are hanging over the street. Just mostly safety. It's just dead limb removal on some of those trees that have died back. So they'll be Thursday and Friday. I've talked with all the residents or put notices on their doors so they can call me if they have any questions or anything like that. It should take 2 days and they'll be done. Talking about water conservation, I wanted to throw an idea out to the council to conserve some water and also make the Little League fields a little bit more usable. We were talking, and I've talked to Brock about possibly taking out the infield grass and making it like Goobler and using the portable mounds. They're on a separate water system than the outside. It is secondary water, but it would make it easier for us to maintain it, and it would also make it available for more tournaments. I could run girls fast pitch softball tournaments in there, so that would bring us up to 6 fields for girls fast pitch, which would bring more revenue to the city. So I was just kind of curious what the council thought about that. I know Little League, I don't know how they'll feel. I haven't really addressed it with them yet, but I think it'd make a better park if we did that. Safer for the players
The
too.
maintenance of grass infields is difficult to keep them from having bad hops. But
Yeah.
also the dirt for your infield needs to be maintained or you're gonna have the same problem.
Yeah, we have a groomer that call it Abby Groomer that does a really good job and it makes it difficult with the grass in the middle to get it. We actually have a laser level on it where we can go down and laser level. We can taper it, make it perfectly smooth. And we go through and do that every couple months. But with the grass in there, we can't really do that as well. I mean, we do the best we can, but then you get lips and humps where the
I
grass
think
is.
with conservation issues that we've got, I don't think that's gonna be a problem. I mean, you might wanna talk to Ben and the Little League and let them know, but that we're trying to save on water and grass is that.
I think it'd make it a better playing surface for them too. And the portable mounts, the pitcher's mounts, always when it rains or, they wear out the divots in it and it's not perfect. Whereas a portable mount is always consistent,
I saw where your competitors have started moving dirt. The soccer fields on the reservation started yesterday.
Oh, they did.
Oh,
I was
really?
wondering about that.
Oh,
Well, that's good news.
that is good.
Always need more soccer fields. I also wanted to ask the council for some guidance on the shooting range. If you want to go ahead and start the RPNP on that, I know we've had some discussion and Scott has called the trust and he could speak to that to see if we want to move forward, what I'd like to do is bring a resolution to the council to approve so I can get started. But if there's some reservation on that, then it's probably not a wise to invest money in all the things that we need to do to make the shooting range happen for that RPNP. So I guess my question is, with the information that we got from Scott and the trust, if we want to continue to go ahead with the RPNP and the resolution.
For the shooting range.
One of the issues I have is still the environmental issues that they're making us do the study on. They have the experts. To me, there's so talking to Ron Whitehead, the cost of doing that road, and I'm not sure the county is willing to participate.
I don't believe they are, honestly.
And I just think it's a huge price, but to me, I'm with the mayor. I'd like to see us tell the BLM that they can have it back and de-annex the portions that we can. We've got our park, our adventure park and stuff that we'd exclude from de-annexing, but we de-annex that and give them the responsibility of policing it rather than the Santa Clara City being the liability portion of all that shooting going on. I wish it were an easier process and it wouldn't take 10 years to do it.
You'd be de-annexing probably everything south of that line.
Right.
All of this.
Cove Wash, south of Cove Wash, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much along the drainage of Cove Wash. The ACEC, the dark green thing in the middle would all come out. That can't do nothing with it anyway. And then all the drainage of Cove Wash would come out. And the tribs that drop into the Santa Clara here, this area here would come out too, with the exception of anything that's right up there by this private end holding.
But I mean, to me, that's a personal thing. I don't know how the rest of them feel about it, but getting it as an RPNP, I don't see it happening with our discussion for a minimum of 3 to 4 years anyway.
That's very true. Probably more, probably 3 to 5.
They want us to do that other study and at our expense, which is another $25,000 minimum. And that's without even getting a guarantee that we're going to get it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into the RPMP, like the paleontology, you have to do the hazardous waste, and there's other things that would probably cost about another $50,000.
So when you said Scott was talking to the trust, explain that.
He said, run the other way. He said I could quote him. He said, run the other way.
Oh,
Don't do
our
it.
insurance.
Or the-
Yeah.
insurance.
For the
truck.
insurance
Gotcha.
of what it would cost. to
I thought it was
insure.
Sitlin. I was thinking, okay,
No.
tell me what that.
He just said that, that's why the county, they had their issues with a couple of houses and a vehicle and, you got a nice set right now. I don't know why you'd take on the liability of that.
So just kind of going to come back to you, council. We can petition to de-annex. And then what I would recommend if you do decide to do that is to go ahead and start enforcing the no shooting in the city limits. So
Do we
would-
have an ordinance?
It's already in place. We just haven't been enforcing it. Right? Isn't that what Chief Flowers told us?
I believe our ordinance is based off of the state of no shooting within 600 feet.
Yes.
We don't have the ordinance of specifically not within.
We could
city
tweak it
limits.
so that with no shooting in the city limits and then give the instructions to the officers to enforce it. And yeah, put out the educational signs and stuff that way. So we'd be enforcing kind of what you can see from this side. And then everything over the rise would be BLM, Washington County.
And then it's their response. I mean, it would be open shooting.
Open
at that
shooting
point.
out there, but now that's where all the trails are.
And they're
Most-
adding trails.
And most of the trails are out there other than the ones that are in the park on that south area. So they basically can start doing, BLM can't enforce shooting per mandate from what I understand.
They cannot
They cannot.
enforce shooting.
Mhm.
So it would allow all open shooting out there.
But it'd be their responsibility.
Responsibility to enforce.
And I don't know that they can enforce anything. So it's just something we can, whatever you guys want to do, we probably just need to get back with Keith and let him know that's what we're planning on doing and see if he's got any. And the county too. I'd probably set up a meeting with Keith and Washington County Commission and just let them know what's going on and see what they say. Unless they
Well-
want to find us a bunch of money.
Yeah, I guess my opinion is if we're not going to continue with the shooting range, then my opinion it would be to de-annex it so that residents still have a place to go.
And they can still go out on the BLM. It just
Right.
won't be in the city. And then we'll enforce the area that, that's closest to the city. up
We'll
in-
just have to put up some signage so that people know where that city limit is, because there's no way you'd know that if you're just.
Yeah,
driving.
we'd probably have some signage at the bottom of the hill, and then when they cross over the ridge, we can have some more.
And there's a lot of detail in the shooting sports part that if we continued, we would have to work out. Lead issues, steel, shot. I mean, at the county, they have to pick that up off in their shotgun range. They actually have a group that comes in and gathers because it's a hazard. And if you don't, you're in federal violation. There's just a whole bunch of costs. If we don't have an organization to take care of that cost, that's going to come out of the city's general fund. And I just worried that it's prohibitive.
Excessive for us. We shouldn't have to run a shooting park that's servicing the whole West County. And paying all the cost of construction and permitting and everything too. So maybe the county will step back in and pick it up and run with it, or maybe they won't. I don't think they will either. Based on the last conversation with Commissioner Iverson.
And I guess I'll just add, I mean, I have had residents ask me to annex all the way to the state line. This is like the exact opposite of that. But I don't know. I mean, you could still keep the RPMP on the back burner and it's just not in city limits, but we could.
The RPMP doesn't matter. It doesn't-
Yeah.
We can annex it if we knew we were going to get the property at any point in time.
Yeah.
St. George isn't going to annex it. So I don't think we got to worry about anybody else sneaking in there. And now you've got Area 6 in answer to your resident. Area 6
just cuts it all off, right?
Cuts it all off. So that's the HCP. There's no sense in having anything in the HCP.
Well, it was interesting because in Brad and I's conversation with Keith, we asked if the northern corridor doesn't go in, are you still
Well, they released the area six,
And they are still expecting to get the 6,000 acres,
even if they don't put in the
even if
corridor.
they don't get the northern.
But I've been
Wow.
told there is no provision to put road or utility corridors through Area 6. Period.
So, I mean, it's a 6,000 acre piece that just everything south of what we have annexed is
Gone.
gone.
They didn't include the part of the western corridor that ties to Sunbrook, the Gap Canyon Drive. That's still not in Area 6, so that's still feasible. I don't know how feasible the road from that connection to Sun River is. It's got to be pretty low on the ability to do. He said, don't even ask until there's another Republican in office, in the presidency. Don't even come talk to them. So
Well, even then you're gonna have.
then it's going to take the full 4 years to get
I
it,
mean,
just like the
even
western.
residents in Sun River are still
They're going to fight it.
adamantly opposed, even though that was the projected route.
I think we'll get the road down to Gap Canyon Drive, and that may be the western corridor. It'll take you to Dixie Drive instead of to the I-15.
Not sure how much help that is.
It'll help quite a bit. It'll take,
I guess it'll take some of the.
especially if we
off of the
keep,
drive.
yeah, if we keep the traffic calming measures and the speed limit measures in the downtown,
Mhm.
it'll help it. Because if you make it hard enough for them to come through town, they'll take the loop around.
Yeah.
So these signals will help. Okay.
Would you like us to bring some proposals forward for where the line might be? So we can just review it in the next work meeting next
I
month?
would.
Okay.
And then we can take it to the BLM. And if we have a map, we can go set up a meeting with the BLM and the county and let them know.
All right. Back to staff report, Canyon View Parking Tourism Grant was submitted. So we're waiting on them to review it and get back with us and see if we can get the Canyon View side done. And the other parking lot's still moving along. They said we should have the everything by the end of next week. So they're working on it.
I apologize, Brad. I had to steal your guy.
I know.
I had to put him on the Lake Powell boat ramp extensions so they can get the ramps back
Garrett?
open. Yeah, I had to put Garrett on that job. And so I stole him for 2 weeks. So that's my fault. I told him I would own up to it.
Is he staying on your houseboat?
No, no, we picked up 9 different projects over there, extending ramps and access to the marinas because of the low water levels. Everything, they figured by the end of next week, none of the ramps will be accessible to boats.
Wow.
So it's going to get ugly. So yeah, I stole him for 2 weeks, so I apologize.
Okay. I only have one other thing unless you have questions for me. We were putting the Public Works and Power and Parks were working together to assemble the pavilions at the Bridge Park, and they discovered graffiti on the bridge. Somebody tagged the bridge over by where they were putting the pavilions together on the south side.
Upstream or downstream or underneath?
Underneath and on the side where the park's going. The
Concrete or the steel?
concrete and steel.
They did steel too?
Yeah. Yeah. So I got a hold of Officer Tobler, Nick Tobler, and he gave him some pictures, so he's working on it. But we had some problems before where they had done some tagging on some of the old structures there, some of the old concrete. That wasn't a problem, but they did get the
Those
bridge.
are historic structures and subject to SHPO, and we should turn them into whoever replaces those guys.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, dynamite does not remove it.
Oh, it makes me feel bad about getting on this. We can clean the concrete, but that steel's not that easy to clean, right? It's the self-weathering.
Yeah, I don't really have the answer to that yet. I know we did some things on the roofing at the Heritage or the Pioneer Park to make it rust with some different chemicals. We might have to do that, but it even probably wouldn't rust at the same time. So don't want to paint it. I mean, we
No,
can
you can't paint it.
try some paint remover and see what happens, but you'll still have that. It's bright blue, kind of a bright blue color.
Brad mentioned that then from this, he's gonna get, since we don't have anything, cameras down there, we're about getting maybe some like game cameras and stuff that we can put down along there just to try to catch something. Yeah.
Yeah.
See maybe what's happening if they, ends up back, so just something to try, because.
Do they have a camera that does 360?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna want a camera on the orchard come sometime, right?
Yeah, we talked about that today too, and even at that time, when we get the new building and some of those things done, that we would camera there and hopefully something that's going that way
Just-
too.
I see these UDOT cameras that are on top of the pole, the little dome on top of the pole. And I'm thinking if on like the one side of the bridge that could catch maybe both the orchard and the bridge.
That would be easy to get the internet there because you got a straight view to the water tank where
I mean,
they
maybe look at it if this is gonna be an issue.
it is an issue. There was like an old couch underneath the bridge today. I hauled it out, and there's people that go down there and park in their side by sides, and hang out down there. And they're not doing anything wrong, but they just go down there to get out of the sun or something. I don't know. Kind of a gathering place.
It will be. I've been down there. Taking my kids down, let them swim in the river under the bridge. It's shady.
Not lately.
Not
Dry
like
as a bone. There's
Not
not a drop
lately.
of water in there.
Just turn around.
this winter. Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Fred?
No, sir.
Thank you. Brock?
Just add that what we talked about a little bit earlier, that city planner, Jim McNulty, he was starting September 13th here with the city. So excited to have him. A lot of things that have happened. I think having the city planners help look at this thing and over plan reviews to the city planning commission and helping them guide them. So he's got a lot of experience that I think will really help guide and help our planning commission along as they look at things that come before them. So he's currently right now with the Greater Salt Lake Municipal Service District, but he has been with Sandy City, Murray City, Saratoga, tapped him years when they were starting tech, 2007, some of their big growth. And so he's
Already got a retirement home down there.
his parents.
He's got aging parents. He wants to get closer to them. And
Yeah, his parents are here. His wife's parents are in Tehachapi. Yeah, so like his wife, I think, said spends like heads down once a month to help out with them. So it's a good thing. He's happy. Seems great. He's been through through the
tested.
fire.
Yeah, he's
so-
been fire tested.
So
Good.
It'll be good.
So excited to have him. So on that note, I'll add also that today, this afternoon, just before actually meeting, accepted the resignation of Corey Bundy. So
You have another job?
nope, not that I'm aware of.
So, and I think Brock's gonna accelerate. He gave 2 weeks notice in his resignation, but I think staff's gonna accelerate that with consent of council.
So will we be looking to replace that position?
That's in discussion of how to.
Fred has his certifications, and so we're not left in a void. And Cody can help us from Ivans. So let me say it just happened 5 minutes before we started. So these guys will talk about it. There'll have to be some change. He was CFM. I don't know if Selena's got her certified floodplain manager yet. I mean, there'll be obviously a disbursement of duties. The planner can take some. Fred can step up and cover more.
Mhm. Yep.
And then we'll probably evaluate, make it go the direction we need to.
I think some of it can be handled with some management too of caseload for Fred and stuff like that. So might have to tweak a little bit in the building department till we figure things out. So.
Awesome.
Okay.
What else? UAMPS.
Can't wait.
So
Do we have our excursions figured out?
Have you got our float tags? Is the rivers open? Is there no river out there either?
I wish I could say I have, but I have not had time to sit down and put that together. I wish I had it all planned where we're eating everything times down to, but I have not put that together. So we'll get Christelle and Gary and we'll put that together. But for Jarrett and Denny, we're driving, I have your vouchers, not the checks, but I have them done up. If you guys want to look, I'm just,
We're having a change of venue, so I may be flying with you guys. If there's room.
Get Christelle. She got that?
She's looking at it.
I looked at the flights. They're pretty affordable actually now.
Pardon?
The flights are actually pretty affordable now. I don't know if it'll be on the exact same flight as everyone else, but we looked at it even. My wife wants to drive, so we'll do that.
Hey, I'm with your wife.
My wife doesn't want to go.
She wants the 9 hours with
Oh,
me.
geez, picked on. I've got my wife once, and how long have I done this job? 15 years. One time, that's Jack Taylor shamed her in front of people.
Well, she's been on the loneliest highway already, so.
Take her the scenic route through Tonopah.
Yeah.
no.
No, she's probably not going. No. We want the certificate for driving the loneliest highway, but, you know.
I've done that a few times.
Yeah. They have.
Used to live in Reno. I used to drive.
Yeah, that's it.
Did you get the
lonely.
certificate?
No certificate.
They have a certificate.
Like a merit badge. Anything else?
I think that's
it?
That's it.
Anything from the council?
Yeah, I was going to ask about the bridge. If we're going to do an event around Swiss Days, like we talked, for opening it officially, or is the graffiti going to mess that up? We talked about a dance on it. We talked about,
The grade school kids.
yeah, like all sorts of fun stuff that we probably wanted to do around Swiss Days. I don't know. Does that go back to your Swiss Days committee and see if they
Is the
want to take it
committee a
on?
Freak.
Oh, I'm sure. I think of all those events, I think the one that I think would work the easiest and best is to do something like on Thursday. You're gone.
I'm gone. But you guys.
That was, I was going to say the Thursday or Friday of getting the grade school kids to try to see if we can bring them down there and have, call it a ribbon cutting, ice cream, whatever it is, and doing something and thanking them on helping with the naming. I think that is the easiest venue because we can bring them then at a different time when it's not trying to move people from here to there and back. So, but that's just my thought.
Don't they get out early on Fridays?
They do have early out on
Yep.
Fridays.
So it could be a Thursday.
Well, I would like the idea of doing it on Friday afternoon, just to have it be when they're early out days. Sometimes I think you run into troubles when you're trying to come up with costs to cover the bus, because schools don't have the funding to cover the busing cost anymore. So if you were to do it as an early out on a Friday, you could even have parents, notify all the parents and have them have their children at the event too. Which I think parents would support for Swiss Days.
Talk to the community, and I don't know if we need to talk to the schools. See if there's any conflicts with their calendars and stuff back around that.
Okay.
And what grade are those kids in now that were part of that?
Yeah,
naming
we'll have to
process?
figure out which class it is.
Maybe going
Are they
into
second
fifth?
graders then or third graders?
They were third, I believe.
They're fifth graders now.
They'd be going into fifth now,
Okay, so they're still at Santa Clara Elementary.
I want to say.
Santa Clara and Arrowhead.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So.
See if it can work out logistically with the school and the kids, and then broach it to the committee.
I still like the idea of a dance. I think it'd be super fun.
If you did the dance, you'd probably want to do it a little
It'd be
different than
late.
Swiss days, yeah. But I don't know, you could do it later that night. Now you got to get a band and all the joys that come with that.
Yeah, there's power there. Get a DJ there. And
There you go.
I don't know.
There's the dance committee chairman.
All right.
It's a really cool bridge and
It is.
a lot went into it. And,
And we promised them we would get them together and celebrate it.
Yeah. And maybe it's not at Swiss days. Like we
You
wanna
gonna have the
push it
graffiti
back.
cleaned up by then?
If you want to wait till it's cooler outside and we could do it later in the year, that's fine. I just want to keep it on our minds so it does get done eventually.
And I won't be there Thursday and Friday till way late, so if we pushed it back, I'd really like to be there as part of that.
You're gone Friday too?
I'm traveling back home Friday,
Okay.
so, but I wouldn't want to, because I could be late and miss it all. So
We can do it another time.
we can look at it maybe in October.
Okay.
A little cooler, we could do the dance.
Yeah, when it's not so busy with other stuff at Swiss days, that makes sense.
21st.
So after UEA. After they come back.
Okay.
from break.
I'm glad you reminded. I'd forgot all about that. What else?
Just a reminder, Tuesday is our free swim day.
Time's
So
it start?
Make sure the word goes out. It's all day, open swim times all day. So it's like 10 to or 11, 1 to 5:30, and then like 6 to 9:30 or something like that. I could look in my email.
Do we have that on the website, Christelle? Okay. Thank you.
Just a reminder.
Cool. Okay, anything else? If not, then we are done.